Hello and welcome to round 3 of the Zwift Racing League Premier Division, the pinnacle of e-racing.
Yep, we're going to be bringing you both the men's and the women's races live from virtual gun to virtual tape with help from our resident expert, Hannah Walker.
Great to be here. Funny enough, mentioning that. I haven't been home since last Monday from the studio.
Yeah, the security guards did mention, actually, Hannah, that's what said.
Now then, the men are racing first tonight, and before we get to this evening's action, let's have a quick recap of last week.
So Leonard Turgle's kind of not giving an inch today, wants to try and make this race as difficult as possible. Vidar Mel of Norway flies through, takes the final sprint on the day there for Movistar. This race has been torn asunder by the sheer way that it's been ridden. It's one of the most chaotic races I've ever seen. But Christopher McGlinchey has attacked, 1,400 metres to go. Chris McGlinchey has 5 seconds. It is all on like Donkey Kong here in London. Ollie Jones is coming across the gap. Where did Ollie Jones come from? Thralling us here. Next Esports are in front. Thrall using the cloak of invisibility and immense power to extricate himself from the group. What an absolutely sensational win by the Canadian. That is what esports is all about. That is Zwift Racing at its finest.
The team results on the night very much followed that final sprint. The next esports powered by Insured taking the win once again. Their second straight of the series and their 8th in a row in the ZRL Premier Division. A thumping margin of victory over BZR Sport Solid Lecole with 73. That's 27 points adrift. Wahoo Lecole with 3rd with 57 and Canyon Esports with 52. It means that the series standings look like this. Next Esports, powered by Insured, on top with a maximum 40 points on offer. BZR Sport Solid Lecole in 2nd, having taken 4th in week 1. Canyon Esports are level on points with them. Now, as you can see though, the top 5 teams are separated by only 8 points, so it is still tight at the top.
Well, it's got to be said though, the question on everyone's lips is how can anyone topple Next Esports from their top spot?
Well, yeah, talk to us, Hannah, about the recipe for success here. So Tom Thrall, last week's winner, mentioned in his post-race interview that their plan is always to just focus on the finish. So how can other teams disrupt Next tactics? Can anyone break their dominance?
I think they can, and if they're going to do it tonight, would be the first opportunity to do so. As we've seen in the first 2 rounds of the ZRL Premier Division, it's been relatively flat, it's been bunch sprints, so it's always kept together and they can always bank on their strength in the finale. However, tonight it's the longest race of the series, just over 39 kilometres. We've got over 500 metres of elevation as well, and there's not really any flat part on the course. So teams who are vigilant throughout, who are always thinking about their position within the pack, and those who can really get themselves organised well, could have that upper hand. Perhaps they might want to push the pace quite early on. There's a few opportunities to do that on Harlem Hill, for instance. It's a very difficult part of the course. And if it doesn't work there, then they can continue that effort over the top and then onto the next incline, which is just over 1 kilometre in length. So they have the options to try and disrupt Next's esports plan and tactic that they've been doing so far.
They do, but also one factor that might go against Next is the increasing points, which I think we should probably talk through as a matter of urgency, shouldn't we?
Well, yeah, it is a little bit different tonight. For race 3, we will actually have 1 intermediate sprint per lap, but unlike previous weeks, those points will double per lap. So if you were to take the full points on those laps, they would be 5 for the first lap, 10 for the second, 20, and then 40 for the final lap.
Yeah, and as you can see, those points will also go 1 deeper in terms of positions each lap as well. And remember, that last sprint is not long before the finish line as well, where there's going to be that 50 points on offer. Only 50 tonight, should we say. Surely then, that has to be an incentive for a breakaway to really maximise those points before the finish.
There is, and I think for teams, if they can try and get strength in numbers within that breakaway, and once they have that upper hand, perhaps we might see a team want to have a team time trial-like effort off the front, try and take everyone by surprise, go over the top on one of the climbs, and really force the pace that way to try and take big points, and especially those big points towards the back end of the race. Importantly though, if teams do go early, they need to make sure that they're confident that they're going to have something for the back end. It's all good and well going for that first intermediate sprint, picking up the 5 points. But when you think of the points differences come lap 3 and 4, and then the big points at the finish line, it could really, really do some damage to some teams who are up there in the standings at the moment. It's who's audacious, who's bold, who's willing to try and go for something to risk it, because at the moment, it really is a clean run for Next Esports.
Yeah, I mean, could it potentially have the opposite effect and actually make the race at the beginning neutralised because people are so concerned about all that weight of points at the end?
It's going to go one or the other. I mean, it's really hard to pinpoint because of the points distribution. I mean, I don't know about you two, but I've never seen this type of points distribution in a race before, and I think no one really knows the tactic of how to deploy it, how to race it. Do teams try and go early on, the first time up Harlem Hill, really try and split things after 3 kilometres? Then you have to really grin and bear it and make sure that you're confident that all of you are there, you all have the legs, you've all done your course recons, or do you perhaps wait until the second lap in, try and get the 1 lap under your belt, and then really go for it?
Yeah, well, we'll find out soon enough, won't we? One rider who's been animating rounds 1 and 2 is Kevin Bouchard-Hall, who rides for Team Velocio. And Hannah, you actually caught up with him, didn't you, earlier in the week?
Kevin Bouchard-Hall, racing out of New Hampshire here. The Velocio rider has been a force in esports here. There's been a lot of talk about a Hall of Fame of all the different disciplines. Well, I certainly would put him into my esports Hall of Fame with all the work that Kevin Bouchard-Hall is doing. He was a U23. He actually represented the United States at the World Road Championships.
So I stopped all racing when I stopped bike racing in like 2010-ish. No, 7. I went back to graduate school, stopped bike racing, and somewhere whenever Zwift started happening, like with a beta, Ted King gave me a key, and I was like, I need to start exercising again. And I got into Zwift riding, and I was very not fit when I started. But I've been doing all the Zwift stuff over the years, and I've seen my fitness come back to levels that I don't have the same body as I did when I was at an Espoir, but my power is better. So it's kind of neat as a 39-year-old. In some ways, I'm riding better than I did when I was 22.
Just talk us through that qualifying process, getting into the Premier Division. What are the differences that you find from racing in the community to the Premier Division?
We're all like friends. Right? We're all like Velocio friends, either Velocio athletes, or we're on our actual local racing team, or we went to college together, or friends of a friend. So we're basically taking this ragtag of all people who know each other and try to turn ourselves into a Premier League team. And we did it, I guess. So that's good. But we don't have any talent, whatever, so it's kind of like a homegrown team of buddies that managed to get themselves into the Premier League. And we're glad to have made it, but we are definitely in the deep end. The level is so high.
Well, you've got to either be really good or really new to cycling to wear white shorts. And in this case, Kevin Bouchard-Hall's got a tremendous amount of experience.
Now, Kevin, I have to ask, the white shorts, usually that's a bit of a fashion no-no, isn't it, in cycling? What's the thinking behind that?
So what happened is to get our kit in, you had to submit with these files, and Velocio is an actual cycling brand, and they sent the stuff to me, and one of them they were black shorts, originally what Brad sent me, the designer of Velocio, but he had a white print that was for the logos. It was not actually meant to be a white shorts. It was meant to be, here is what the logos and the prints look, and it's easier to see on white, right? So in the print. And when I sent it in, it said the black shorts, and then Charlie Eisendorf, who is the race director, event director at Zwift, was like, white would look pretty good, and it would really stand out. I didn't actually run it by Velocio. And they saw it and were like, well, we don't sell white shorts because no one's supposed to wear white shorts. It's a big no-no. You're right. Like, Matthew Van Der Poel should wear white shorts. Most people should not after that. Anyway, so it's going to be switching to blue, but in the meantime, they look great on the broadcast. I have to say, I think it really pops.
Well, Hannah, I've got to say, I'm pleased someone's asked about the white shorts. I mean, we can see Kevin actually warming up.
Black shorts in real life.
Black shorts in real life. I mean, you get away with white in the virtual world.
You can. You don't have to deal with the weather conditions, with it being muddy or rainy.
And they don't go see-through as well, which is the most important point, I guess.
Very important. I mean, this course could potentially suit someone like Kevin this evening. Quite exciting one.
It certainly can. And as I said before, that if a rider or a team is audacious, they're bold, they're willing to give it a go, and Velocio certainly are, and especially Kevin Bouchard-Hall. He's not afraid to try and attack, to try and go for a long one. It didn't work out in week 1. He went for it again in week 2. He scored in the intermediate sprint. I think, if you've got the guts to go for it, tonight's certainly the night.
Well, their team had a very good week last week, so hopefully things can play out well for them again this week. On which note, let's take a look at this week's course.
Tonight, the riders are in virtual New York, racing 4 laps of the Park Perimeter Loop. It'll be the longest race of the season in terms of distance at 39 kilometres, and with 505 metres of elevation gain, it could make this race split to pieces. There are no long climbs, but the course profile looks like a sawtooth. Little to no flat and 2 solid punches. The first precedes the sprint point with a 200-metre long 5% ramp, but the bigger of the two is then the uphill drag to the finish line and beyond, which touches 9% at times. With the ever-increasing amount of points available as the race goes on, it's likely to be tougher than ever. And what stands out to me are the minimal opportunities that riders will have to recover in between efforts. Okay, let's take a closer look, shall we, at 3 teams. We're nearly ready to go, actually, in terms of start time, but let's quickly catch up about Velocio to start with, shall we, Hannah? What can you tell us about this team?
Yeah, as I just mentioned before, they're a team of riders who aren't afraid to give it a go. They're really strong guys. They've first time in the Premier Division, and I think they're racing well together, and I think can race on confidence, especially from last week.
Interesting fact actually on this team, Ryan Atkins, who we can see in the image, is quite a large guy, a strong guy, is a Spartan athlete, but also holds the Guinness record for Everesting run. Running, yeah. 11 hours 30.
No way.
Yeah.
Everesting running, and now here in ZRL Premier Division.
Yeah.
Fair play to him. Canyon Esports, in contrast, just look like a bunch of chancers then, don't they? Really? Who have they got? Lionel Vujasin. What's he ever done?
Well, actually, also an interesting fact, one of my best mates in there, Gary Muller.
Really?
Also a triathlete back in the day, yeah.
Well, there we go.
Sorry, I'll let you carry on.
Hard to top here, isn't it? It's certainly hard to top. I mean, I think Canyon Esports, I think tonight's going to really suit them well because of the nature of the course, the amount of elevation. Ollie Jones is in tremendous form, of course, off the back of the New Zealand Classic stage race a couple of weeks ago. Lionel Vujasin, perhaps it could be, a great night for him. I know he's got bigger goals on the horizon with the World Championships in just over a month's time. But I think it could be a good night for Canyon Esports.
Well, yeah, former winners of the series, we've got to say, haven't we? And then lastly, very quickly, Callus. Mark, any cool facts about them?
Well, actually, I hate to say it, it's actually Kalash.
Kalash.
So, yeah.
There we go.
Brand.
Yeah. But a team of Norwegian riders actually there tonight. And, well, yeah, Hannah, where are they going to finish, do you think, tonight?
They're racing really strongly as a team. They've got a really strong unit, and they always keep themselves well together. They're up there in the standings, and I think certainly ones to watch. They kind of go under the radar a little bit, and I think that really plays into their hands.
Yeah, okay, we're just about ready to head over to Matt Stevens and Dave Toll in the commentary booth. Can anyone topple Next Esports? Hannah, one word answer, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, they can. We will find out in the next 39 kilometres of Central Park. Over to you, Matt and Dave.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Si. My one-word answer is I don't know. Actually, that's 3 words, but we'll move on to that later on. Here we are for the first time this season in the Big Apple. We're in New York City, just see that beautiful skyline, but today is all about the New York Park Perimeter Loop. We've got 4 laps of this undulating circuit with 4 opportunities to score points, and as the chaps and Hannah explained earlier on, these points accumulate as the race progresses. It's something that we have never seen before at all, so it's going to be an unpredictable race. And add to the mix as well, the aero, the feather, and the anvil power-up. That is a power-up, I can tell you, you do not want to get wrong. As ever, to talk us through what is going to be happening today, it's going to be entertaining, whatever it is, Mr. Dave Toll. Dave, wonderful to have you with us, have you with us again. The riders are about to go underway. Let's kick them off. Look at that beautiful skyline, beautifully rendered, exact to the centimetre in terms of the perimeter loop. The riders are now underway. And here we go. There's Kevin Bouchard-Hall on the front. Dave, let's bring you in straight away. They've got about a 400-metre run-in before we hit the course proper from the pens. But Dave, this should be a special race, shouldn't it? Unpredictable as ever, I reckon.
Yeah, Matt, I haven't looked forward to a race this much in a long time. It's going to be absolutely bananas out there. I like Hannah's attitude. To tell you the truth, last week, but for a simple twist of fate, next was it was in the balance. So there's no guarantee out here. And I'm looking at a team, Matt, like Wahoo Lacole. This is a tremendous opportunity for them out here. We talk about stacking the finish. Well, you're going to have to do more than that out here today. As Mick Jagger said, go ahead, take a bite of the big apple, but don't mind the maggots because there are a lot of pitfalls for you out here today. And Matt, I expect counterattacks after some of these bonus sprints. And as Hannah also mentioned, this point, the way this has been laid out, it is going to be a real crescendo out here as it's going to get more and more important that you keep riders up in that front group. Matt, I think it's fair to say this is going to be a Donnybrook in New York.
It is. I think we might get another Donkey Kong quote maybe near the end. If anything, if the London route was anything to go by, what a spectacular race that was last week. The racing happened in a completely different way that we thought. There's a little couple of moves going on the early stages. And one thing, if anybody is watching this for the very, very first time, as we're looking at Kevin Bouchard Hall, he's got his hat on indoors there, out of the saddle up one of these drags. If you go online and look at the profile of this particular course, and any Zwifters watching tonight who knows this course, there isn't too much flat at all. It is constantly undulating. And the positioning of the intermediate sprint, which comes at 7.5 kilometers, and at the finish, are pretty testing, although the intermediate sprint does come over the top of a little bit of a climb. But Dave, it's a complex course, isn't it? The rhythm constantly shifting and changing. And as we can see, we talked about the Velocio team early on. It looks as if they're happy early doors to push the pace.
Yeah, and that's their MO, their modus operandi, Matt. This team has always been aggressive. They came out of the community, just like Next did, community racing. And in that great interview that Hannah had with KBH, you really get a feel for the deep end of the pool that you get when you go from the community up into Premier League. It is so hard to control a race. And really what we've learned from Next, and you can see they're starting to mass up at the front. This first sprint comes in right in 7.5K-ish. The first points will be distributed. You look at that points table, Matt. 5, 3, 2, and 1 points the first time, and it doubles. It not only doubles in points for the first rider over the line lap by lap, but the depth of how we're scoring it. By the time you get down to that fourth sprint, we're scoring 7 deep.
No, we certainly are. That's Dan Cassidy. You can just see his cooling system. It looks like he might have double fans on the right and the left there. Jersey fully unzipped, kicking out around 4.5 watts per kilo in that rather fetching kit. In real life for him, though, he's actually opting for the black shorts. This is probably best for all of us, but you can just see this route. We're heading in a north-easterly direction at the moment. Then we reach the top of the park and we start heading back in a southwesterly direction, undulating all of the time. First time here, there's a few riders just opting to get into the Super Tuck. That means they're above around 50, 56, 57 kilometers an hour. So a micro opportunity for a rest. But this sprint, as you said, Dave, is going to come very, very short. And Dave, I'm going to tee up a wonderful analogy that you talked about earlier on before we came on air, as we see Paul Odlin just moving to the front for World of Elite Swifters. What did you came out with a really, really nice phrase for the equivalent of this race is. You said it was like a certain sort of test. Can you just repeat that, which I think is pretty spot on?
Well, if it wasn't tough enough out here, Matt, it's like bike racing figured out a way to add a ramp test into it, which is exactly what we're doing. Each one of these sprints becomes more and more important. And, I mean, the level that we're going to have to be involved in those last 2 sprints, Matt, it's going to be world-class, no doubt about it. Now, I don't know if you use this term in the United Kingdom. Here in the States and criteriums, when they run a big money preem late in the race, they call it a gambler's preem. It's really rare that you can sprint twice in a 5-minute period, but that's what you're going to have to do here for sprint 4 on lap 4 and then into the finals. So absolutely a ramp test element, like anybody was looking for that, right? Bike racing, unbelievably brutal, and this is going to be the absolute highest level. And there's a guy that's cut out for this course, Lionel Viassen, the Belgian rider there on Canyon. Back to you, Matt. It's going to be really interesting what we see after this first sprint. Our counterattack's going to go up the road.
Exactly. Well, as you can see, that little spike, if you just look in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you can just see the gradient. That is constantly in a state of flux on this particular course. And on the left-hand side, you can see a Lionel Vujasan, who's looking good. Vujasan looks as if he might have had a little bit of a dropout there, but if he just keeps that momentum going, this happens on the odd occasion on Zwift. Of course, all of these riders are at home. A little bit of electricity blip, but Vujasan showing that real experience, and thankfully, very, very quickly, he is back into the drag, because if you look back to last week's race, Canyon Esports have very rarely, Dave, ever not finished a rider in the top 10. Although they finished fourth on the night, they failed to get one rider in the top 10, and they are certainly going to want to try and make amends tonight.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about horses for courses, and you have to look at the big picture now. This is a team sport here. And some teams, this has almost been, we talked about this the first couple of weeks, like track racing with the points and the significance of the sprinting and the repetition of these sprints. Matt, you talked about how hard it is to find a rhythm on this course. And all of this sprinting and the points make things just absolutely bananas. And look at this. They're pressing hard right now. Matt, this is a setup, a bit of a run being made by Velocio right here. You can see the yellow jersey, so they've got a plan. They're trying to activate it here. There's Jimmy Kershaw for the Movistar team. Paul Odlin for World Elite Zwifters is up there. Bit of a jailbreak happening right now, Matt.
Yeah, Paul Odley, you can see really working hard there, but look at that flotilla of yellow jerseys with white shorts moving to the front there. They're making sure they're at or near the head of affairs, because remember, this sprint comes at 7.5 Ks, but it's after a nasty little climb. So going over the top, if you can open up a bit of a gap, then that could reap dividends. As we see Bjorklund of Team Swedish Zwifters, should I say, just moving clear. He's managed to open up around about a second lead, only 5.3 kilometers gone. So approximately half a lap of the opening laps done now. There's the stats, although he's actually eased off a little bit. There you go. Look at the constant rise and fall of this circuit. It really is a hard one. Positioning is absolutely crucial. Obviously, making sure you're saving as much energy by sitting in mid-pack or even towards the back. But because of the way this the pack strings out on these little descents, you've really got to be on the power all the time to make sure you do not lose too much of a position. 32.7 Ks to go. A lot of racing still to come, and the first sprint comes in pretty much 2 kilometers time, Dave.
Incredibly popular world that we're in here in New York. This park right in between the Upper East and West Side. It's 843 acres, Matt, and they do race out here. Our league director, Charlie Eisendorf, used to host races in Central Park. He and his father, for many, many decades, used to be out at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's the only time that you really can race here in Central Park. This loop that they're racing on today is 9.7 K, so just under 10 kilometers of racing. The sprints come up at a really interesting interval, and we are rapidly coming up on that first sprint here. Again, scoring 4 deep. This one is the baby sprint, the bambino of the sprints, with 5, 3, 2, and 1 points offered up. But it really does light the fuse for what's going to be an incredible day of racing here in New York. And brace yourself, Matt, because here we go. This is going to be the opening of Chapter 1 of what's going to be an incredible 45 minutes of racing that remains here.
Indeed. Well, look at that. The -2, -1s, they're carrying a lot of momentum into this sprint. They'll dip down, then the road will kick up, and the sprint itself only comes into view after that little descent with about 50 meters to go. So it's one of those unsighted sprints. So timing and course recons, knowing this course, absolutely crucial. This is where the road kicks up. Look at the stats on the right-hand side of the gradient. 4%, 5% in a minute. Look at the spike in the power that these riders are having to put out. James Barnes moving to the front. Jimmy Kershaw, Joe Priotti, Mark Bousted, Jakob Buchland is also up there. They're starting to open things up. We've still got around 300 meters to go. There is the start of the split, but Oya is the rider on at the front now. So Oya going clear, 14.2 watts a kilo. And it looks like the rider from Team Swedish Zwifters are going to make it 1 and 2 for that squad. The rest of the pack leaving things or just dropping back a little bit, but that was a good opening salvo, a 1 and 2 for Team Swedish Zwifters there, Dave.
Yeah, that's a welcome to the big time for the Swedish Zwifters. What a way to start out this race. No doubt they picked up at a minimum of 8 points there. And now you watch and brace yourself, because the danger of after that sprint, you are a little bit exposed. But I think everyone's going to just lay back a little bit here right now, Matt, and keep the powder dry as the significance of these sprints doubles lap after lap out here. Having that anvil power up is relatively It's certainly not the one that you're looking for. There's not a lot of opportunity to use it out here. But let's see what we've got now here. Quite a mix of riders up on the front, Matt, and so Leonard Tugels on BZR is not racing today, but certainly he and Paul Odland, the New Zealander, have been the most aggressive riders in the Zwift Racing League this season, without any doubt. And the World Elite Zwifter, presented by Oral 7 rider, is back at it now. This is going to be interesting. You see some big names like Matt Gerbeau, James Barnes moving up to the front. These are some of the heavy hitters that we have, and it's early in this race, Matt.
It certainly is. Odlin has opened up a couple of seconds gap. As you said, he is one of the most aggressive riders out there, week in, week out in the Zwift Premier League. We are talking about this man, 2.3 seconds, just using that little bit of momentum that he carried over the top of that climb and through that sprint. And also, there was a few riders that backed off. There is the Flamme Rouge. That'll be the Flamme Rouge they see with 1 kilometre to go. A few riders, as you can see in the pack on the left-hand side there, getting rid of that anvil, because from this point onwards, it's pretty much a long drag to the line, maxing out at around 9%. So it's a very, very difficult finish indeed, especially given the fact that last time through, they'd have battled it out for the final sprint 4. Let's call that the all category sprint day. 40 points on offer, as you said. We've had the Bambino and the all category. We just need another Italian and French phrase to complete the set.
Yeah, exactly. And, Matt, when you look at it now, it really gives you a feel for how close that 40-point sprint 4 is to the finish. Can anybody win both? That would be mind-blowing, to tell you the truth, to have the ability to recover that quickly. And that really plays into the hands of teams like Next that have multiple powerhouse sprinters that they're going to be able to go to. I don't know, Matt, would you designate one rider for the penultimate sprint and another for the finale? It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, the depth that some of these riders have will amaze you.
Indeed. Well, I'll answer that question in a moment, Dave. We're just coming through to complete lap number 1. They are the confirmation that Team Swedish Swifters have the 8 points. Team Italy up there with 2. Wahoo, the only other team that's scoring it. Look at all the power-ups being dropped here. The one you want on that climb through the finish certainly is the featherweight power-up, which reduces your weight, as most of you will know, by 10% for 15 seconds. Do not press the anvil on that one. In fact, we don't understand if they use the companion app, that they can get rid of the anvil. And Dave, on a course like this, unless you've really, really tested out that power-up, and bear in mind, you can't get that power-up generally when riding on Zwift. It's in-game only. It'll be a power-up that I wouldn't really want to use at all. It's one that I want to get rid of as we look at another very, very popular figure in the world of esports, of e-racing. It's Teppo Lorio, which, what do you reckon, Dave? Teppo Lorio versus Kevin Bouchard-Hall in a hair-off. What do you reckon?
Boy, that's the judgment of Paris. I have no idea which way to go on that. There's no doubt that both Teppo and KBH are more than bike racers. They are lifestyles. No doubt about it.
Indeed.
I'm sure, Matt, you heard the story about Teppo opening up a trial account and earning his Tron bike, his concept bike, in less than a week during the holidays.
Insane.
Teppo is very enthusiastic Zwifter. So look at this, Matt. Couple riders going off of the front now. I'm not exactly sure what the play is at this point, because that second sprint is still a bit away. We'll be sprinting for 10 points for the first rider over the line, 6 for second, 4 for third, as we actually go 5 deep, 2 for fourth, and 1 point for the fifth rider over the line. They continue to push the tempo out here. They really never back off, Matt.
They certainly don't. You can just see Gary Muller's stats there, the South African, riding for Canyon Esports. And if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, as he just wipes his brow there, you can see that little ride-on sign. He's got 12 riders. Let's up those numbers. Let's up the numbers for all of the riders in this field. So open up your companion app and search for the rider you want to give a ride on, and please get involved. Also get involved on the comments as well below this YouTube video on GCN Racing. And look at that. We always get a great response, don't we, Dave? When you, Hannah, or I request those power-ups, it's wonderful to see the way you, the community, react, because that is what it's all about. And believe you me, when these riders get extra little ride-ons, thankfully it doesn't add any weight to their ride, because some of these pockets are already bulging with ride-ons. Doesn't have the equivalence of an anvil, but what it does is just give them a little bit more morale. So here we go, 26.7 kilometers still to go. Sprint number 2. coming up in around 3 or 4 kilometres time as we look at Gary Muller. There we go. Loads of ride-ons being dropped already. But interestingly, Dave, not too many attacks on this circuit so far. And you do get the sense that because of what's at stake later on, that riders are really thinking about the second half or the final quarter of this race.
Yeah, as they should be, Matt. No doubt about it. This is a man-made wonder when you look at Central Park here. And, Matt, I think for most Americans, I'm not sure what the worldview would be on Central Park, but you would think it would be relatively flat. You think about Manhattan. Well, it's not. You're either going up, down, or turning when you're out here. And we can see we're adding the gradient now. You can see that there's only a few sectors where you could really use the anvil. I'm not used to saying anvil in association to racing. The anvil has limited application out here, but there's no doubt that when you look at that finishing the last few hundred meters, either the arrow or the feather, the arrow helmet, I should say, which it certainly makes you a little slipperier. The feather might be the most desirable of all because it pitches up to 9% for a bit there. Matteo Cigala there, the Italian racing out of Ireland here. I think this group, though, Matt, pretty content right now. Just try to get safely through the first couple sprints here before we move into a frenetic back end of this race. I mean, it's going to be pandemonium. Here's a previous winner, Pim van Diemen, the Dutch rider that we're looking at. He was a nice pickup for the Movistar team. He's a cornerstone on that squad. Certainly a rider I'd be watching in the finale here today. Look at all the ride-ons. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, looks like he's just dropping a bit of a featherweight Pim van Diemen. Because remember, next time through the sprint, they'll pick up another one. There's around about a third chance of picking up, or 33% chance of picking up an arrow, an anvil, and a feather. It is all random. You do not know what you're going to get, but Pim van Diemen, clearly a big hit with the community. 44 ride-ons, and we've only raced for 15 minutes, and a lot of other riders on this. This is one of the stickiest points on the circuit. It's a short drag, but it's very, very steep, 10%. So just to alleviate, just to make the legs a little bit easier, just bring that heart rate down, use the power-ups as wisely as you can. It doesn't mean you have to use them when you attack. Quite often it just makes riding in the pack just that little bit easier. But I think we've got Tepolorio, who's attacked just off the front. The rider, the very popular rider, as we just talked about, from Wahoo Cole, just moving clear. He's opened up a couple of seconds gap. And a few more riders with the momentum that they've gained over that little drag now, opting for the aero tuck, as Tepolorio does the same. So another opportunity here, Dave, just to get a little bit of a micro rest. But you can sense the team's now getting themselves into position for the next sprint of the evening.
Boy, Matt, there's a real churn going on in the front of the group right now. Holding on to position is a huge challenge. This course is relentless on our riders out here. They are really starting to ramp it up. You can see the green and black jersey of Next. Now, if you look back through not only this season, but the previous season, Next has been almost unbeatable. These teams, though, today, Matt, I think that they've got their best opportunity with the point structure that we have. It's really going to be in play. And look at this. We got another attack going clear.
Here we have indeed, but you don't see that very often. There's Jimmy Kershaw, who went clear, but Daniel Turek, who's a very, very accomplished Czech rider on the road, actually gave us a little cheeky wave. Some of these riders really, really flair, getting involved, having a little bit of fun as David Jambrodzic now starts to move clear. This is a good move by the rider from Restart Racing. Daniel Damrozic, the American, opening up a little bit of a gap, but he's also bringing a couple of riders across the gap now. So a couple of riders are now 1.5 seconds clear. A few little tentative attacks in the early stages of this race. And there he is, Daniel Jamrozic. He's even hanging his undervest up to dry there. That's pretty unusual. Not seen that before. But again, I guess it's like the jersey acting as a flag. But another very, very aggressive rider here, Dave. This is what he loves to do. He really loves to get stuck in.
Yeah, this man is in fuego right now, giving Daniel Jamrozic some credit here. Very, very aggressive at this point. This is going to be interesting. Will he be able to get to the line for the second sprint and pick up those 10 points? Looking at that gap, it's gone up. So Turek sitting at almost 2 seconds back. Still a ways to go here, but certainly I like the fighting spirit out here. There's a reason why we call these riders the gladiators of esports. It's this spirit that we're seeing from Jamrozic right now. He's a rider that certainly is up to the task. Again, we talked about Paul Odlund, the New Zealander, earlier. Daniel Jamrozic is also quite a reputation as an aggressive rider. Here's the problem. The momentum that the peloton has at this point, Matt, makes it very hard for a solo rider to hold them off. You're fighting physics here.
You certainly are, but this is what this man is used to. Jamrosic still has a couple of seconds lead. The rides on coming down, 40 rides on for the American, and the rest of the bunch are still out of his draft. Really like looking at that heat map, gives you a real indication of the optimization. Looks like he's going to be absorbed by the peloton as they come through into this little bit of a sprint. Zanaska is moving through to the front. Gary Muller also there. As you said, the real big washing machine affecting this peloton at the moment as they head towards the intermediate sprint. But it is Zanaska who has moved clear off the front, holding about 3/4 of a second lead.
Yeah, wow. So it's, again, as soon as a rider comes back, another rider attacks, and that is what it takes. All heart here from Zanaska, trying to put his team up on the board in this significant second bonus sprint that we have. So the Italian Luca Zanaska here is the gap going to be enough? No, it isn't. You can see how quickly they reset things as Leandro Messanil coming up and over the top. The Argentinian riders, we go into full sprint mode, and it looks like Christopher McGlinchey out of Northern Ireland. Is it going to be enough? Here they come.
Well, also Lionel Vuillersan getting involved as well. McGlinchey, Vuillersan, Wern, Tudal over the top goes Lionel Vuillersan. Is he going to take this one? But he's going to be brought back just over the line. It's Tudal, I think, who is going to take this one. Good ride by Emil Tudal of PO Auto Ceramic Speed, who takes that one from Vuillersan. We'll get confirmation. Double points that time through 10, 6, 4, 2, and 1. So with every single lap, the stakes get higher and higher and higher as Barnes moves to the front. They will get confirmation. There it is straight away. It is Tudal maximum points. Vuillersan will have to settle for second place. James Barnes, the first to score from Next Esports there with 4. Chris McGlinchey of Wahoo there with 2 points. So some of the hitters moving to the front. What does that leave us with? So PO Auto Ceramic Speed, a good night for them so far with 10. Team Swedish Swifters after that great initial sprint with 9. Canon Esports with 6, Next Esports with 4. Then we have Wahoo La Colle, and the only other scoring team, Dave, Team Italy. Next time through, though, 20 points. This is going to get harder and harder and harder.
Yeah,
look
that's
at the replay,
that ramp test element that we've been talking about, Matt, this Machiavellian chess match. You can see how each sprint is double the value of the previous one, which means our leaderboard is going to be constantly updating. Let's take a look at a replay here as we see the sprint opened up quite a ways out. Matt, these are not the bit players. These are the heavy hitters that we're looking at as Emil Tudal will come over the line. That's a nice one for PO Auto, as they're going to love picking up that maximum bonification. Not a bad job by Lionel Vuillersan here to come through for Canyon. They're going to be happy as this is one of the first times that they've been able to get a little bit of a head start on Next, Matt.
It definitely. But if you noticed, although there was we had Barnes sprinting there, just coming through the kilometre to go board, next time through the finish line will be pretty much bang on half distance. But some of the bigger teams are definitely waiting and biding their time. And that's not to take anything away from the teams attacking early on. Because what you've got to do, Dave, when you look at the way the racing goes, you've got to take your opportunities when you can. And that includes scoring points on the night to help with your tally, to keep you from even getting dropping out of the league. So the teams near the bottom of the league really need to look at opportunities that present themselves for themselves too. It's not just about all the big hitting teams here.
Yeah, exactly. And having that depth, and this is something that we've heard from riders like Thomas Thrall about how important the finale is. Well, that, again, the penultimate lap is almost like a finale with 40 points for the first rider over the line. So within the course of about 5 minutes, we're going to have a sprint for 40 points for the winner and then the finale at 50 points. So an incredible amount of importance in the back end. The last 5 minutes of this bike race is going to decide everything. You can put yourself in decent position, get yourself out from behind the 8 ball in the first few sprints, but you cannot assure yourself of anything until it's done and dusted out here. Good look at how steep it is leading up to the finish line. That's what the last 50 meters of the race will look like.
Yep, just hits 4%. That is 2 laps done. So we're now commencing lap number 3. So as you can see, round about half distance, including that little bit of a run-in. There's the bunch being led again by Daniel Jambrozik. He really is so aggressive. He is a rider that just loves an attritional race, tries to make it hard for so many people. And one day you do think that one of these little moves is going to stick. An incredibly popular rider. And look at him again with that real familiar style, back and forward, or side to side, should I say. Looks like he's on comms there. He's on his phone, maybe communicating with his teammates just to see what the score is, but certainly doing well in terms of making his presence felt along with the team, and also very popular with the community too, with 55 ride-ons there as Nortal now moves clear. And there's a couple of splits going, Dave, on this gentle ramp. As we get to around half distance, you get a sense that now riders are going to try and make a play, try and maybe split things up ahead of the big points that are on offer. I don't think all of the teams are going to want to leave these sprints to just a big sprint. They're going to try and want to go clear on their own.
Cameron Cogburn was a nice addition to the Ceres No Pins team. It's good to see him up in the mix. Simon Nordhall also now trying to animate this race a little bit. We've just hit that middle point that Matt was talking about, and you can see rider after rider hitting out. I love looking at this Restart Racing team, Matt. It's one of the teams that has 5 different nations represented up on the team here today. It's interesting how teams do it. We listened to KBH talking about Velocio being all a bunch of friends, other teams. World Elite Zwifters come to mind, recruiting from riders around the world. There's different ways to get into the Premier League, but one thing's for sure, you really got to unite on a day like today. If you can't get 2 riders into the top 10 in those last couple of sprints, I don't see how you're going to end up in the top 3 out here today. Jimmy Kershaw here, another rider of note in the ZRL, and Kershaw now pressing the tempo. Let's see if anybody wants to get up there and start working with him. Matt, it's hard to imagine how this one is going to play out today, but I would not put it past a small group of riders, especially what we witnessed in Nyokio and in London. They're not afraid of attempting breakaways out here, which makes esports racing that much more fun to watch.
Oh, definitely. Last week and the opening round were absolutely spectacular. I don't think I've seen a race so attacking as we look at Jimmy Kershaw. And what you're looking at as well is a little bit of an instruction, should I say, on how to access and follow riders and then give them a ride on. So fire up your app and do exactly what is happening on your screen. So we're going to find Zwifters, type in the name, of course, our producer, having a bit of an issue. Maybe he's got sweaty thumbs. But Jimmy Kershaw there, give him a bit of a follow and then press ride on. And that includes, of course, when you're just out riding on Zwift as well. I always do like giving riders ride-ons when I'm out just riding. But we've got a couple of attacks here. Ollie Jones has gone clear. Daniel Turek is also trying to shut the gap there. So 2 very, very classy riders now moving clear and opening up a bit of a gap. Ollie Jones attacked coming into the mall last week. He was swamped in the end, finished way outside the top 20, but he's trying to make amends here and has got Daniel Turek for company. 2 very, very strong riders are moving clear here.
Yeah, obviously cover and kill is the plan for next. They were not going to let a Canyon rider go up the road without paying attention to that, and they do exactly this, as Ollie Jones was a very dangerous rider out here. These are the top 2 teams as we come into this 3rd of 6 races that makes up Season 2 here in 2021-22. Next and Canyon, number 1 and number 2. So that's your platinum and gold standard here, and almost neutralizing each other like running. So right now, 20 points waiting at the next sprint. It's a pretty decent gap, Matt, to tell you the truth. 20 points for the first rider over the line. It drops down to 12 for the second rider. So a nice opportunity, but they're going to reset things here. Turek, though, very, very attentive for next through this part of the race. Clearly, he understands his role and is playing it quite well for the next team in the first half, even really first 2/3 of this race.
Indeed, Turek, as you say, has been very, very attentive. You do get the sense, Dave, don't you, that Next Esports have really, well, we know, we don't get the sense. We know how thorough they are in terms of their recon, their planning, their strategy. We've seen them execute every race so far to perfection in terms of scoring as many points as possible. Look at all the feathers there being dropped. I can tell you what, I hope they're not from those pigeons on the left-hand side. I don't think they are. I think that is our community getting, or not the community getting involved. Of course, they're not ride-ons. They're little power-ups that riders are dropping over this very steep, nasty drag. And it's Bjorklund now who has gone clear over the top. 2.7 watts a kilo, just mops his brow, backs off just a little bit. 17 ride-ons for the rider just on your screens there. Interesting setup in there. And if anybody can get involved and try and tell us what car Ollie Jones had in his garage, he may even be getting, Dave, the bow effects from the car in his garage. Well, that'll be interesting to sort of dig down into the data of the benefits there. But we know Ollie Jones certainly knows what he's doing. Another three riders now moving clear. But nobody, Dave, tonight so far has been given any leeway at all.
I like the fact that Canyon came out swinging today, Matt. I see what you're saying. Nobody can take any kind of distinct advantage, but clearly the mindset on Canyon was to race aggressively here and try, if there's any way that you can, and really for Canyon, you almost need, well, I think in bike racing, you need a little bit of luck, to tell you the truth. And even the team like Next, as strong as they are, is going to be relying on that, because Canyon might get some help out here today. I was talking about Wahoo Lacole. I'm going to be interested to see if they can become a bigger part of this race in the second half. This is going to be the Argentinian rider, Leandro Messanil, a very dangerous sprinter, and certainly a rider with a lot of potential in this league.
Well, look at this, Dave. He's been joined, or he should be joined very, very shortly. He's got around half a second on his teammate. There is the picture-in-picture of Leandro Messanil of Argentina. Out of the saddle, putting a hell of a lot of torque through those pedals, pounding them, in fact, 8.4 watts a kilo. And he's a very, very popular rider indeed. 110 ride-ons for the Argentinian, who continues to move clear. And his teammate, Paul Odlin of New Zealand, Dave, has not managed to get in contact. Wow. But this is a big play. This is a play for the big points. Remember, next time across the sprint line, 20, 12, 8, 4, 2 and 1, 6 deep, but 20 points. This is a big, big attack. The biggest attack of the night so far, Dave.
Yeah, absolute danger, Will Robinson here. If they can hold on, they will immediately leapfrog up onto the top of our leaderboard here. World Elite Zwifters is fighting to get back up into the top 10 in our league, and this is exactly how you do it. You do not wait for opportunity. You have to go out and create it, and they are doing exactly that right now. Look how deep Leandro is digging here. He's going to do it, Matt. He's going to hold on and pick up these points here, and it looks like his teammate Paul Odlin is turning this lap into a big one for World Elite Zwifters.
Well, this is an amazing performance. We just saw a little guest star moving into the pain cave of Messanil. Still is out of the saddle. He's been out of the saddle for around about a minute. 121 ride-ons, and he deploys at an absolutely perfect moment an aero power-up as well, which will increase his CDA for 15 seconds. Exactly what he wants. He's built up one of the biggest leads we've seen so far, even compared to last week, Dave. 14 seconds on the group behind. He should take this sprint. Big, big moves, but he's still out of the saddle. It looks like he's doing a Zwift version of an Alberto Contador.
This man is flogging himself like a rented mule right now. Viva Argentina! You've got it. Actually looks pretty nice there. I think I saw a bathing suit going by as the place to be, no doubt about it. Actually, though, these riders really looking, I mean, obviously he's got everything figured out, but staying cool is one of the battles. Well, this man has got cool in his DNA. Gap has gone to 15 seconds. Paul Odlin, his teammate from New Zealand, has gone back into the chasing peloton, but this is going to be out here for quite a while. Very interesting move here from Messanil. Matt, I've been waiting for Leandro to have a breakthrough moment since season 1, going back to last year in the ZRL. This is a massive, massive effort from Messanil. Welcome to the ZRL, Leandro. This is your moment.
He certainly is. He still is. He's been, since the breakaway started, Dave, he's been constantly out of the saddle. This is a full-on effort. There he is, just over the top of that, straight over the top of that climb. He can now relax a little bit. He's got a big, big gap. In fact, he can back right off only 2.4 watts a kilo because he has taken that sprint at a canter. Who is going to take second place on the line? Oh, that was a very, very close one. I think it was Tenselhoff who took second there. We'll get confirmation of that for Wahoo Lacole. Well, it looked like it was actually Kalman, but we'll see in a moment. There it is. Sorry, Schweib takes second place. I do apologise. Tenselhoff was in fact third there for Wahoo Lacole. And then we've got the first home from Aero, Ben Hill in fourth. And then we have Thomas Thrall, last week's winner, of course, with 2, and Kalman with 1. So very, very interesting indeed. Next Esports, again, backing off a little bit, but it has, you do get a sense, given the tallies that we've got there, that it's the other teams are really holding back. So World of Elite Zwifters, courtesy of that magnificent ride a few moments ago, 21, way ahead of Restart Racing with 12. Then we have Wahoo Lacol with 11, P Auto with 10, and the rest further back. So just shows you fortune in terms of gathering points on a course designed like this favours the brave. But 40 points, Dave, next time through.
Fortune favors the brave, but Matt, I'm going to parlay or change that into patience is a virtue, because
Indeed.
Patience now is going to be what we are seeing from next, and I have a feeling you're going to get an absolute barrage from here on in. Let me set the table for you here, because you can see how the points have been stacking up. Well, the next sprint, if you win it, puts you immediately into the lead with 40 points waiting at the line. 40, 24, 16. It scores all the way down to 1 point. It's 7 deep at that sprint. Matt, all the cookies are on the table right now, and here we go.
We do indeed. We've just been through the Flambeaus. Next time through the finish line, it will be 1 lap to go. We are on lap 3 at the moment, and soon we will move in to the final lap. There is the average heart rate of these riders here. Daniel Turek, 145 at the moment. Jamrosik, 151. And that will only move up given these two riders have gone clear. Turek and Jamrosik now have a 2.5 second lead over a solitary rider. The American Spencer Sugarbrick is trying to move across the gap, although he has been reabsorbed by the peloton. So a very, very aggressive point in the race here. And there's the average watts per kilo. Turek at 4.84, Jamrosik 4.66. Kershaw, courtesy of that big move earlier on, spiking a little bit higher at 5.30. So very, very shortly indeed, we will get the bell. And then 7.5 Ks later, we will get that next sprint and then the finish line. It's action stations, Dave.
Yeah, it really is. All hands on deck. Matt, when you look at it, having that lower number in the watts per kilogram really speaks to experience and be able to keep your nose out of the wind. Cameron Cogburn, a new rider too, racing at this level. It shows you how just every little bit starts stacking up as we are right down to it. The finale of this race is going to be outstanding. Again, it's just back-to-back body blow after body blow with these last 2 sprints with an incredible number of points. There's our Japanese friend, Takado Ikeda, here starting to move up. Matt, it's really amazing when you look at the community racing that's going to be happening tomorrow around the globe with over 15,000 people who participate in the ZRL. You won't see a peloton this big anywhere in the world going to the line. It speaks to the depth and the talent that we've got here in the ZRL, going all the way over to Tokyo to find Mr. Ikeda here hanging up in that front group.
Indeed. Well, we've got around 67 riders in this front group. Ikeda, very, very well. He's very quick. He's a very explosive rider. His best ever performance was a couple of seasons ago in the ZRL over in Innsbruck, but he can perform exceptionally well. And bear in mind the different time zones. We talk about the community aspect, the global reach of Zwift, of this platform, but it is 10 to 5. I believe that is in the morning. Yeah, so of course it is in the morning. That is pretty early. Or is it very late? I do not know. But hats off to Takado Ikeda. It's absolutely, yeah, I mean, I should have known that, shouldn't I? But 24 ride-ons. Come on, everybody in the community. Everybody's watching. Give Takado Ikeda, purely for getting up so early, some more ride-ons as well. Fire up your companion app. As you saw earlier on, it is very, very easy indeed. And please do get involved. We've got 8.1 kilometers to go. This is round 3 of the ZRL, the Zwift Racing League. And for the first time this season, we're in the Big Apple, taking chunks out of it. And there is the highest scoring rider so far on the night. No real surprise there. World of Elite Zwifters, Leandro Messanil of Argentina with 20, courtesy of winning sprint number 3. Schwieber with 12, Tudal with 10, and then the rest with relatively low points compared. But as Dave detailed, next up we have sprint number 4, 40, 24, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. And then only 2.5 K later, it's the finish. How are these teams going to tackle this one, Dave? Will we see breaks? Only 7.7 Ks to go. This is going to build to a big, big crescendo.
Matt, I'd have to say, I think that if you look at all of the sprints so far, there's no rider that has appeared in more than one of these featured sprints. So that tells me expect some new names to move forward here as well. It is so hard to contest these. And again, I cannot imagine a world where the man who wins the penultimate sprint, I'm just going to call that the gambler sprint, to tell you the truth, the 3K to go, the next sprint that we have coming up, if anyone could go back to back there, they are one incredible athlete and really have a future racing in the World Tour. A huge group together as we take a look at the vanguard of this race. To tell you the truth, it is all waiting here, Matt. There is no team that has a distinct advantage right now. Even though World Elite Zwifters has that lead, everything is going to go bananas here as they make the run in, and expect some brutal attacks being launched out of this group. I don't expect in any way for this peloton to remain intact as they lead into the penultimate sprint here.
I do not think so. I think you're right there, Dave. I mean, you could look at it two ways. You could look at it multiple ways. And because of the very nature of the ZRL over the last couple of seasons, we've got the fact that the riders do not race often on these courses. This is the first time in several years, ever actually, we've done this circuit. We've been in New York and raced, but not on this circuit before. Add to the mix the unorthodox points distribution, and it makes these races so difficult to read as we look at Ryan Larson there with 46 ride-ons. Do you split your team into two? Do you have two riders that go for sprint 4 and then two riders that go for the finish? Or do you set up the riders for sprint number 4 and then continue the effort through and use it as a launch pad? There are so many different permutations, Dave, as we look at Ryan Larson, a former US champion of Zwift, of course.
I think, Matt, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And these teams, as we have learned, have a lot of different techniques in how they dissect their game plan coming into the finale of this race. But certainly that numbers game of trying to rush the finish line, trying to get 3 riders up into the top 10, that has been how it's worked for Next. And other teams realize that. And that's why it's going to make this finale absolutely frenetic. I don't know. Do you just have to play it by ear here? Can you really even go in with an established plan, Matt? Or do you just have to let the chips fall where they may and hope your riders are strong enough to weather whatever comes your way?
Yeah, I think looking at the way that Next Esports in particular and Canyon Esports, just to pick two of the more well-structured teams, I do feel as if they are holding something a little bit back, because this final push to the line in the last 4K is going to be exceptionally difficult as we head up this nasty little rise. Lots of feather power-ups being dropped here, reducing their weight, of course, by 10%, and offering up a little bit of an opportunity to rest as opposed to the riders that are having to push a little bit harder over this ride. And we're getting a couple of little attacks as well. Perotti's attacked here for the BZR Sports Solid team. He's just moved clear half a second now, a tentative little move there. And it's a couple of riders dropping the anvils. Teppo Lorio dropping the anvil over the top, doubling his body weight, in fact, for 15 seconds. You certainly don't want to be heavier over the top of that. Here is our first shot of Pirot, who's moving clear for Belgium, but he's only got a slender lead. And look at that, Teppo Lorio with the anvil and a combination of the super tuck goes clear.
Well played. That's some gamesmanship from Teppo. We're going to go back with Christopher McGlinchey, who you certainly knew was going to be factoring into things. This is Wahoo Lacole's moment, Matt. They're trying to make the most of this. You've got a small opportunity. There's a crack in the door. They're trying to kick it open right now. Here goes the Irishman, McGlinchey.
McGlinchey with that cap on out of the saddle there, 72 rides on, 8.5 watts a kilo as it continues to rise up this drag. This clearly is a play for the 40 points on offer. 7 deep this penultimate, the final sprint of the day. Then we only have around 3.5 Ks to go, but McGlinchey has gone long. Kershaw trying to close the gap behind. Turek and Nicky Hub also up there for Next Esports. Kershaw bridged across for Movistar here, straight over the top of McGlinchey, who cannot hold on to the wheel of the rider from Movistar.
The finish line is right at 39K, there or thereabouts. This sprint comes up at, let's call it 36K. So we're getting down to it, the nitty gritty, and here you go. They're going up and over the top here. Zanasca is back, the Italian, on a phenomenal day here today. Luca Zanasca, andiamo!
Luca Zanasca, vai, Luca over the top of this drag. He's opened up a bit of a gap. Odlin far up, Ranko trying to chase behind, but he's opened up a nice gap, carrying that momentum over the top, and he should see the sprint very, very shortly indeed. This is a very, very well-timed move, but he's going to be caught, I think. Odlin, the New Zealander, there for World of Elite Zwifters. Farrup is there for Team Kalash as well. It won't be long before we see that sprint round in the corner. They've just got to drop down a little bit more. It's a little bit more further away, but Odlin is still pressing on with this effort. But 3 riders clear now, Dave, 1.3 seconds ahead of the rest of the group, but they're going to be motoring behind them.
Oh boy, and here we go. It's going to be Daniel Turek one more time for the next team as he asserts himself into the conversation. So Turek now is going to be leading the chase to the finish line. Again, 40 points for the winner of this sprint, 24 for second, 16 for third, and Turek with another wave. This man is unbelievable. Odlin coming up and over the top, and here's Shell Verup trying to come through for Callis as they're looking to make their mark. It is a full-on gallop to the line right now. The Italian is irrepressible. Luca is back.
Well, this is great. There's 5 riders have gone clear, so we've got a little break for me. Zanaska, Turek, Farab, Odlin, and also Perrot, the Belgian from BZR Sports Solid. They've got a 2.5-second lead over the chasing bunch, and it won't be very long before we hit that 40-point line. 40, 24, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. Lots of points on offer, but then it's about 2.5 Ks to go. What a little move here. The gap is increasing as well now. 2.6 seconds for our leading 5.
Yeah, the difference at that sprint, 40 points for the first man over the line. The fifth man over the line, 4 points. That's a logarithmic difference out here, and Daniel Turek is going to press on now. So next in full effect. Here we go. It's finale time, Matt.
Finale time, and Turek goes clear. He's joined by Farab, who deploys an aero power-up just at the right time. This is where the road kicks, but look at the move on the left-hand side. Wow, what an attack there by Ollie Jones. Deploys a power-up just at the right time. This is the 6% section. He'll be slingshotted over the top, but look at the battle behind for these bonus points. Ollie Jones again has gone too early, I fear. He's been caught within sight of this final sprint. Akeda is there, Emmerich as well. It looks like Akeda's going to take it all. Lorio, I think, took that one. So close. I think it was Lorio. We'll get confirmation. Breathless stop. I don't think we're going to get a chance for a replay, Dave, because we only have 1,500 meters to go. Teppo Lorio, the legend from Finland, takes it with 40. Huge. Akeda, what a move by him in 24. Mel in 16. Dave, I'm breathless. Over to you. 1,400 meters to go.
Absolutely unbelievable. Wahoo Lacole is punching above their weight right now, and they're looking to throw that knockout punch in the finale. This is huge. The Wahoo Lacole team is having their golden moment in the sunshine here in Central Park. This is it. We are down to the brass tacks, and World Elite Zwifters sitting in second place with 45 points. And another attack, the New Zealander, Ollie Jones, he and James Barnes racing out of New Zealand, just absolutely throwing down the gauntlet here as we make our way into the finale.
Well, Ollie Jones, 93, ride-ons there from the man in his garage with his car chasing him behind. He's opened up a gap of 3.5 seconds. And the group, after that big attack over the climb, is spread all over the road. So the field really strung out here, but the gap is starting to come down. Turek on the front now chasing for Next Esports, Dave.
Wow, and this is it. It's all on the line. So Canyon and Wahoo Lacole, along with World Elite Zwifters, are trying to take this one down inside of 1K and put some real pressure on the next team. We could see the biggest upset in ZRL history here today in New York, but there's the catch. The catch is being made. This is the front of the bike race, Matt, as we've gone inside of 1K. Who's going to be the difference maker out here today for their team?
It's going to be an absolutely scintillating finale. This is the road. It rises and falls, then kicks up for the last few hundred meters. But it's the Italian Luca Zanaska who attacked earlier on. And up moving up onto his wheel is Ryan Atkins, the Canadian for Velocio. But also a big attack there from one of the riders from Beast Mode. Beast Mode have just gone clear now. It's Emmerich who is now on the front. He's opened up a little bit of a lead. Ollie Jones has now been caught, but Emmerich is flying clear for Beast Mode, powered by Rose. One more drag to go, and he will see the finish line. Still carrying a lot of momentum here, but it looks like he's going to get caught again.
Yeah, we've still got a little ways to go. You can see everybody throwing. Boy, if you had that helmet, that aero power up, 25%. Slipperier right now, and that's going to make all of the difference. We've opened the throttle all the way up, and look at all the next jerseys. They're trying to make a comeback here. Who's going to hit hard? And that's that. Let's see who gets this one.
Well, it looks like it was Brian Duffy Jr. on the line. We'll get confirmation. That was so tight. An absolutely wonderful finale there. That finish line came up very quickly indeed. But what a battle. So much to talk about. Great riding by Tepulari, but I think it was indeed James Barnes who emerged from the melee from South Africa to take the win there. Another win for Next Esports. 50 points in the bag for Barnes. What a ride by him. The South African based in New Zealand takes another big win. What can anybody do, Dave, about stopping the power, the might, the strategy of Next Esports? Dave, what a superb race. Again, a wonderful circuit, and it really did build and build. Steady start to that crescendo that we expected in the end.
Yeah, that was what racing is all about. We're going to chance to look at the points here and see if it was enough for Next. Obviously, combining all of the riders' points into one tally is the name of the game. James Barnes is a living legend in the world of esports. An OG, Matt. He goes back to Zwift riding in 2014 in beta to being one of the strongest riders in the history of esports racing. What a win for the South African.
It certainly was, and it was a patient ride by him as well. We didn't see too much of him at all. Clearly, they wanted to keep him fresh for the finale. So there is your winner. He finally allows himself to dismount from the machine that he's been riding on for the last 50 minutes or so. Let's we head back to the studio in just a few moments. Dave, thank you very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, but lots to talk about. So it's time to head back to the sofa with Hannah, Simon, and Mark.
Thank you, Matt. We'll be seeing you very shortly for the women's race. But my word, what a finale. Congratulations, James Barnes, on taking out a blanket sprint finish there. That was like a proper bunch kick, wasn't it, Hannah?
It was. It wasn't looking like that, though, in the run into the finish with around 2 kilometres to go. The suspense that was building and the excitement that was building, because we had so many riders who were in a potential position to take a victory. There was a number of riders not afraid to go long either. Ollie Jones, he came out of nowhere and he almost slingshot himself into that intermediate sprint, didn't quite pay off, and then went again into that finish again. Got caught with just under the Flamme Rouge. Real shame, but he put himself out there to try and take those max points back to back.
I thought that was the one, to be honest.
I did.
Interestingly, we didn't see any many decisive breaks or attempts at breaks by teams or riders to try and get clear maybe 2 laps prior, as we discussed before.
Yeah, Jan Rosick put himself in a position to try and break away. We had a few riders who did attempt. They just didn't quite gain as much time as they might have liked. There was only the one rider, his name eludes me now, who got 14 seconds, got the max point. Messanil, thank you. And his time gap came down very quickly. Whether that was the plan, make sure you take the maximum points. After that, you can sit up, wait for the bunch to come past, and get a bit of respite, get yourself back in, and then let's focus on the intermediate sprints proceeding. Yeah.
Now we're waiting on official confirmation of results, and it is going to be absolutely fascinating, isn't it? Because the fact that those points ramped up. And yet, so we saw, I think, just prior to that final intermediate sprint, Wahoo Lecole were on top. Next Esports were right down in 8th place with just 6 points. I think that was what James Barnes had scored on the second sprint. So potentially, the whole thing's going to have turned on its head. Have you got a hunch as to who might have taken that?
I haven't. I really haven't, because it was a really impressive racing throughout by the World of Elite Zwifters, Wahoo Lecole, the amount of points that they had, especially going into that final intermediate. And I think Canyon Esports were another team who, they were only on 9 points going into that final intermediate sprint. Ollie Jones, of course, wanted to try and take the maximum of 40. Didn't quite happen. He tried to go again to take the maximum of 50. Didn't quite happen again. So Next Esports, have they done enough? There was certainly a few jerseys up there in that bunch sprint, because as it turned out, it wasn't a reduced bunch sprint like it was looking at with 1,500 metres to go, but actually lots and lots of names in the mix.
Well, before we talk more about that, we've actually got James Barnes, our provisional winner of today's race, with us. Congratulations, James.
Thank you. Thanks very much, guys.
Very, very impressive racing. Now, what was your team tactics heading into tonight?
Oh, with the change, with the update of the intermediate points, it definitely put a spun it on its head, which makes it for very interesting racing, as I'm sure you guys saw. So it is definitely a case of follow the moves and see what other teams come up with and how they ride. Covering Canyon, covering BZR, which were great. They made the racing very interesting. Wahoo also threw it in, so it was great. But then again, I think it's definitely just kudos to the team for me, the sum of the parts and everything, on how deep the talent is, because Dan was there, all the boys were there when they needed. So it was great racing.
Because last week, your teammate, when he won, was saying that you guys were all in for the finish, intermediate sprints, less important in your overall tactics. Given the fact that there was 40 points on offer, just, a handful of kilometres before the finish line, did that change things, or were you still completely focused on that finish line?
Yeah, of course, that threw a big spanner in the works. With 40 points, it's a lot of points. It's second place overall at the finish. So it was a case of we committed. I think we had 2 guys committing, like following the wheels for the finish, to make sure that if we needed to, they could push deep to get the points or cover the points off from Canyon or BZR. But again, I think with the depth of the team and the strength of the team, the ability to finish, as you saw, I think there was 4 of us in the top 8. The guys are always able to, when it counts and when it's the hardest and when it's the deepest, they're able to pull the results out.
Now, I've never been successful at bunch sprints, or indeed anywhere really on a bike, if we're being honest. But what's it like, the fact that you as a team have won the previous 8 rounds on the bounce, plus obviously winning the overall in season 1? What do you like? Is the pressure building up, or are you kind of just thriving off the confidence?
I think it's definitely a testament to the team and how great the team is. That we're all friends. There's all such a great support. There's Greg, who's an awesome DS behind us. It's definitely not a sum of a few individual riders. It's a sum of parts as the team, and the support of the people behind us and in the background that are helping us to thrive. And we're definitely thriving off each other more and enjoying the competition from the other teams, because it means that we have to keep pushing ourselves and keep thriving to do better. Because if we stand still, then everybody's going to pass us. So we have to keep pushing ourselves harder and deeper and trying to find ways to get better.
Is that a way of saying that you're getting a bit nervous now that you might not win one week?
No, we're never nervous. We're always there to give it 110%, commit 110%, give it our all and fight for it. I don't think there's any nerves from the boys. If you were in the Discord, you would hear there's pure confidence in each other and support behind each other. There's definitely no nerves behind it.
And are you guys confident then heading into next week's race? Slightly different format, obviously.
Team time trial, and I'm always up for a good team trial. Those are the world's best suffer caves, the best place to teach yourself, to push yourself as hard and as deep as you can. For me, I love them. I think we thrive on them as a team, because again, it comes down to the team cohesionness, knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses, riding with each other and helping each other. So it's not team time trial is not an individual, it's a sum of the parts.
Yeah, right, James, thank you so much. You still look like you need to compose yourself slightly. We will await the official results with interest, but if you think you've got 4 out of the top 8, then it looks positive, I'd say. So best of luck, mate, and thanks again for chatting to us.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for all the support and everything.
All right. Hannah, that's so cool to see a confident team, and sounding genuinely as well, that is a proper cohesive unit. It
is, and it doesn't matter whether that's James Barnes, Tom Thrall last week. They all feel, and you can feel and you can sense that friendship between them all. They all know they can trust each other. They all know each other's strengths and weaknesses. They know where they thrive. And they always know that they can count on each other. And as he just said there, he knows that when everyone else is really suffering, that they can also suffer harder, go as deep as they possibly can. And as he says, he thinks 4 of the riders in the top 8, which is substantial.
It is. We can find out now whether it's enough as well. We have the standings for tonight. There we go. Next
Wow.
esports powered by Insured, taking the top spot once again. And that, I've got to say, that's another thumping win. 128 points to World Elite Zwifters with 86. Although a great finish for them, taking second place. Kalash esports powered by Wahoo Burke. That's just behind in 84. So third place for them. And then who have we got? We've got Auto Ceramic Speed on 63 and fourth. Oh, sorry, I still haven't brought my glasses. One amateur. And then fifth place, Wahoo Lacole. Looking like they didn't build very much on their intermediate sprint point tally there, but taking a solid fifth spot nevertheless.
An interesting Canyon Esports in sixth with 48. A little bit lower than we perhaps would expect.
Very good point. Yeah, and now if we look at the overall series points, we can see clean sweep from Next Esports at the top. Kalash in second now, up one spot I think. Canyon Esports still in third, but that gap opening, whereas before tonight, I think we had the top 5 all separated by 8 points. Now the top 5 are separated by 12 points there. But, I mean, that is some run of form. Kalash, though, looking good. Hannah, what's your thoughts on them for the rest of the series, perhaps?
Exceptional. They're keeping that consistency, which is really important throughout the whole of the season. And BZR Sports Solid, bit of a bad night for them, only scoring the 12 points in the team overall standings. And they've gone from second overall and moved down the standings. So whereas Kalash, they've kept that consistency, they've kept themselves up there with the 18 points. And interestingly, Next Esports winning by 42 points to second place. It's really exceptional what they were able to do. As you mentioned before, Mark, they went into that at one point they were on 6 points as opposed to Wahoo Lacole's 51 points. It just shows that how important and how much they heavily put themselves into that finish line and the big points.
Well, we've seen the points now, so let's take another look at that final kilometre heading into the finish, because it was quite something. So here we go. This is Ollie Jones' massive move, and obviously, unfortunately, being caught, as you said, Hannah.
And then we've got, the bunch catches up with them. Hannah, what's your call at this point? I mean, we've got one rider off solo, but really with that drag to the line, there's not much you can do, is there, to hold off the peloton?
Yeah, it's quite deceptive because you have this downhill section towards the finish line. Before that, we did have that little rise, that little kicker, which is, it's a very difficult part going up to the finish. Here you see a bit more of the kicker to the actual finish line, and it opens up quite early, that sprint. It's a really long, drawn-out sprint, and important that these riders were up to a top speed before they hit the rising slopes there. It was looking like we might have seen a smaller breakaway as they caught Ollie Jones. Kevin Bouchard-Hall, the first rider to make the junction. Then Zanasco from the Italian team, he went again. So there was multiple riders who'd already previously been on the attack, and it was almost like they were spreading their attacks thinly. Ollie Jones the same. He went for the intermediate sprint, didn't quite happen. He tried to go again, just didn't quite have the legs to hold on. It's such a long effort from that intermediate sprint to then try and go again and take everyone by surprise.
And as always, that timing of the power up is crucial, as we saw there.
Yeah, we saw a lot of riders with that aero power-up all deployed at the same time there. Yeah, do you know what tonight reminded me of? Tonight reminded me of Milano Sanremo in real life, in that you had this steady build-up, loads of action, but everyone clearly waiting for the finale. And then that intermediate sprint point with just a couple of Ks to go was like the Poggio. So you had a few riders chancing their arm, and then ultimately they could have worked out, but actually it came down to that full blanket sprint on the Via Roma. And what a sprint it was. Well, yeah. He attacked so hard, didn't he? But I suppose he got a run into that little ramp, but it wasn't enough of a gap to overhaul the others. And I guess, when James Barnes was talking about the amount of points on offer, they did drop off very quickly on that intermediate sprint, didn't they? So if you won, sure, that's 40 points, but if you finished third, it was significantly lower than it would have been on the finish line, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just looking through the riders who were in the mix, Next Esports weren't even in the top 7 to score. So it really, everything came down heavily weighted for that finish line.
It did. It did. We also we've got to doff our caps to Leandro Messanil, haven't we? Because he was the only rider to get a substantial gap in that race. 14 seconds, I think you mentioned it earlier, Hannah. And that was some move, wasn't it?
Interesting, yeah, because he went for the intermediate point, and I think we all assumed he was going for a decisive breakaway. But it almost seems like he just sat up as he went through that intermediate sprint.
He did, didn't he?
Solidify the maximum points. Make sure you get that on the board with as much time as you possibly can. Make sure that it's in the bag, as we say. And then perhaps the call came that, right, sit up now, try and recover the best you can, get back, take draft in the peloton, and let's try and take some more points in the final intermediate sprint. If not, let's go for the finish.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, actually, because that was sprint 3, a solid 20 points for his team. And then actually there probably was enough time then to recover before the finish. I think it's only if you were trying to double up on sprint point 4 and then recover again in that couple of kilometres before the finish. You've got no chance.
Yeah, let's not forget that the lap is really long. It's over 9 kilometres. So if he was to stay away on his own after intermediate 3, that's a long, long way to be out there on your own, pushing the wind. You've got no riders to help you. You've got no draft. You're not saving any energy at any point on the course. You effectively just burning your matches.
Yeah, I mean, I would say with a heart rate of 205 BPM, he maybe was burning those matches. I'm not sure I've ever seen that before.
No, not on someone over the age of 12 years old. He was clearly fresh and clearly. Well, naturally gifted, I guess, when it comes to a higher heart rate. Useful, I think, when putting out the kind of power that he was putting out just then. Right, let's turn our attention to the women's race now. Firstly, big news, the world champ is in the house. Yes, Ashley Moolman-Pasio, world esports champion, and one of the most famous in real life pro cyclists as well, leader of the Rocker Corba collective, is on the start line.
Yeah, great to see her racing complete, obviously, with the rainbow stripes of the world champ. Let's remind ourselves, though, of what went on last week. We saw some very aggressive and animated racing, so let's have a quick recap.
We're in London. That is the course. It is the classic course, 38.4 kilometres in distance. And here we are. Straight off the bat, we've got Hayley Simmons just in the centre there. A few riders from Movistar. Still got about 100 metres to go, though, so we're not over yet. Big sprint on the left-hand side again. Ooh! Lizzie Brooke took maximum points. Pennington in second place. The visibility power-up being used by Kristen Kulczynski now. Kulczynski goes clear, but the others won't see her. What a move by the American. Scary Mary with a aero power-up. It looks like she's going to fly past Kristen Kulczynski within sight of the line. Wahoo Lakal on the left-hand side, though. So hard fought for, but in the end, it was Zoe Langham who took maximum points. 20 points for Wahoo Lakal. 1,500 metres to go, and guess what? We've got another invisibility power-up. She rounds just the top 180-degree turn. She's got a slender lead of 2 seconds, but Eilidh Gardner clearly has been tasked with going clear. What a race this is! Gardner still holding on. Can she do it? She's got 1.1 seconds to go. Can she hold on? Wilkinson trying to close the gap. Ada Hayes is there. She's been caught on the line. Incredible scenes here in London. What an absolutely sensational race that was. Lewis Ada Hayes of the Ionian race team who snatched victory from the jaws of despair. Eilidh Gardner will have to settle for 4th place on the day. Wow, what a race that was.
The team results, as you can see, were so close, and something of a surprise perhaps after the domination of Ionian race team in the final sprint. But confirmation that Wahoo Lakal took the honours on the night thanks to their consistency in the intermediate sprints. It sure was close though, just 2 points in it, and both teams racking up a huge tally on the night. 3rd place was Toyota Cryo RDT, but with less than half the number of points. Such was the domination of Ionian and Wahoo Lakal. Team Hino finished 4th and Saris No-Pins finished 5th. In the overall, it means that Wahoo Lakal take top spot with 2 wins out of 2. Ionian are 4 points adrift, having finished 4th in week 1. Defending champions, undefeated champions in fact, Team Hino with 35, and they are level on points with Saris No-Pins.
Well, Hino are the defending champions. They're going very solid, but the new kids on the block, Wahoo Lakal, they've really caught the eye. And with more elevation at play here, could they take advantage once again?
Well, Hannah, what do you think?
I think they could. When you look at their roster, Isla Gardner, exceptional climber, will thrive on a course like today. She's a great time trialist as well. So if she wants to go for a long one, try and force a breakaway, that quite well may well be. Zoe Langham, likewise. Lizzie Brooke is a fantastic time trialist and an Ironman athlete too. So they've got a really strong all-round roster for a race like tonight.
Okie doke. Right then, we are going to head straight over to Matt in the commentary booth. Hannah, you get your skates on because you're going to be joining him very shortly. Who is going to take top spot?
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. We'll see if Hannah can get a personal best on Strava, getting from the sofa to the commentary booth. But in the meantime, let's have a little look and a reminder at what is on the menu for our riders here today. There it is. We're in New York. It is the Park Perimeter Loop. 39 kilometres in distance, elevation, well, almost 4 times more than last week. That's 505 metres. And there are the points, 5, 3, 2 and 1, doubling each time through. Lots of points on offer on lap 4. And the 3 power-ups on offer tonight, the Aero, the Feather and the dreaded Anvil, which we did see put to pretty good use today on some of the rolling sections of this course. It's not one you want to get wrong, as you know, because it basically makes you, well, doubles your weight for 30 seconds. And it will be great to see as well in the rainbow bands of world champion Ashley Moolman-Pasio, flying the flag for Rocacorba Collective. Of course, she is the current UCI Cycling Esports world champion. How can she fare on this course? Because the riders are indeed underway. So they're underway. There's a little bit of a run-in of around 400 metres before they join the circuit, and you will notice a couple of different jerseys. There is Ashley Moolman-Pasio on the left-hand side. Unmistakable. Number 124 there with those rainbow bands. And also take a look out for Canyon SRAM, because they've got their funky new kit on show, which has gone down very, very well. I must admit, they are always to the fore when it comes to jersey design. But Canyon SRAM with a new kit, and it looks like she's with us. Hannah Walker in the booth. Doesn't even look like she's out of puff. Did she get a personal best? Hannah, how are you? Great to have you alongside me. The men's race was corking. This should be very intriguing indeed, especially with this really unusual points distribution.
Thanks, Matt. Certainly did set a personal best. Let's see where we're at by race 6, shall we? And get it on the leaderboard. But yes, it's really interesting, isn't it? The format of tonight's race and this formation of the points distribution is exceptional, because it's something that, I don't know about you, Matt, but I've never seen before, nor on the track, on the road. I think it's a really tricky task for the riders to get their heads around in terms of the tactics. How do they play it? What do they do? Do they wait and perhaps give up trying to not go all out, let's say, in the first intermediate sprint, but really put a lot of weight towards the back end of the race where the bigger points are?
Indeed. Well, there is Ashley Moolman-Pasio. We've got, as you would expect, we've got a nice camera set up over in Spain, near where, well, that's where she's based. She's part of the Rocacorba Collective, and that's our first look at Ashley Moolman-Pasio. Resplendent. I do like to use the word resplendent. I get a bit criticised, but look at that. Those rainbow bands are iconic. They are resplendent indeed, and she is the first ever UCI Cycling Esports World Champion. She will be defending her title on Saturday, the 26th of February, around the Knickerbocker course in New York. So a different course that we're riding on today. In fact, for the World Championships, it's a little bit longer, 54.9 Ks over 2 laps of the Knickerbocker course. So a very different affair in terms of racing, because the World Championships, of course, Hannah, isn't a points race. It's flag to line. It's a scratch race. But I think Ashley Moolman-Pasio, if she's going to defend that title, it's just good to get a feel of racing at this sort of level again, because many of the riders in this field she'll be doing battle with when she's facing off with them in a couple of weeks' time.
She certainly will, and as we know, it's such a specialist discipline between esports, road cycling, track cycling, that she needs to make sure that she's done a few races before she gets to that esports world championships. in just over a month's time. So important for her that she gets some racing under her belt. She missed the first 2 rounds, perhaps also because the courses didn't necessarily suit her. They were very flat. As we know, Ashley Mumman-Pasio is an exceptional climber. She's one of the world's best climbers, won the Queen Stage at the Giro last year. One thing, you know, she's also been having to recover from COVID, so she's not quite sure how that's sort of affected her in her top end and her ability to really dig deep. However, one thing she does have on her side is, having been on training camps with her UCI World Tour team, SD Works, she does have that endurance under her belt that she's been doing throughout the winter.
Yeah, she certainly does. We'll soon see how she fares today on this course. We're looking at the moment at the 3 Canyon SRAM riders in that new kit that I was talking about. And it always amazes me, the Canyon SRAM team, that they're all here. Neve Bradbury, Ella Harris and Maud Alderman. Maud, of course, is the latest winner of the Zwift Academy. And both Neve Bradbury and Ella Harris also have won that and are now professional cyclists at the highest level. They really have come on. And there they are, 3 of them, all in their pain cave, looking good with that wonderful new kit. And what I have noticed is no ride-ons yet for Maud. So she's the Zwift Academy winner. Please do, as you did with the men, fire up your Zwift Companion app and get involved and give these riders some ride-ons, please. But we've got a bit of an attack. Van Houw has attacked now for Saris and no pins. That's the first little attack of the evening, Hannah, on one of these nasty little drags that punctuate this course, because there's not much flat on it at all. Plenty of opportunities for anybody to give it a bit of a nudge if they want.
Yeah, this is up towards the Haarlem Hill climb, and Liz van Hurling, our race winner from 2 weeks ago on round 1 in Nyokio over in the Makuri Islands world. And Liz van Hurling, you know, taking things on a lot earlier than we might have anticipated, but she's trying to force a breakaway. She's got Beth McKeever, which is a little bit of a surprise for me to see Beth go so early at this point. But perhaps, you never know, they're wanting to try something, perhaps force a smaller group to go away. At the moment, Charlotte Colclough, who is leading things from behind from Toyota Cryo RDT, but that gap continuing to maintain itself.
Yeah, it's opened up a little, although they have been caught just on the downhill section. The thing is, when you look, because we haven't seen a race on this particular circuit, and add into the mix the really, really unusual and I think quite exciting, disruptive nature of the way they've distributed the points, the riders aren't going to really know how to race it. I think whatever teams' instructions are, what their plans are, what their strategy is, how they deploy their resources, as we look at Beth McKeever here, please do get involved in the ride-ons. Let's get those ride-ons up from 0 for one of the most popular riders out there. Is this, whatever you plan, Hannah, on a course like this with no precedent that's been set before, what you are going to have to do is allow for a degree of lateral play, and communication more than ever is going to be crucial depending on the way that things unfold.
Massively, massively. And also being honest with yourself, with your teammates, with your sports director for each intermediate sprint. I mean, how do they go about it? Do they select a few riders who will really have a sole focus on the intermediate sprints, and then you know, another 1 or 2 riders, they have their sole focus towards the back end of the race and specifically the finish line to try and score big points there?
As we're looking at Megan Eastler here from Saris No Pins, kicking out just around about 4 watts a kilo as the road just rises again. Top right hand side of your screen, as you know, that's where you can spy the gradient. Not too much flat at all on this circuit. It does pretty much replicate for centimetre to centimetre the exact GPS files of real life. So if you have ever ridden around the perimeter loop of Central Park in New York, this is pretty much what it is. So it's pretty exact. The only thing is, it's basically a New York as perceived in around 100 years' time. So if you look above those beautiful trees into this New York skyline, you will see it's something like Blade Runner, a cross between Blade Runner and Akira. It really is something absolutely fantastic. And the World Championships does start to go onto those glass roads. But today, we're going to keep our wheels firmly on the tarmac of Central Park on this undulating course as we look at Lewis Adehace. What a ride Ionian had last week, Hannah. They had 4 riders in the top 10. In fact, Only 5 teams managed to get riders inside the top 10. Amazing. Adahace, the winner. We had Polona Itkin in 7th, Estrate in 8th, and then Ariel Vaharan in 9th place. They really have performed so well, haven't they? Okay, Wahoo leading, but what a ride last week by Ionian.
It was exceptional, and becoming second, only 2 points from Wahoo Lacole. I think the ride that they had in the finale, to be able to have 4 riders within the top 10 is phenomenal, really. And the way that Los Adahace timed that sprint so well, just took that on the finish line. It was almost heartbreak, wasn't it? But she just times it so well. She's got that punch, she's got that speed. Just the way that she finesses around the peloton is exceptional, quite like her teammate Daniela Estrate.
Yep, definitely. Well, first look at Ashley Moulin-Passio just moving through to the front, just showing those wonderful colours as the inaugural wearer of the UCI Cycling Esports World Champion jersey. I know she does wear that with a lot of pride. And there should be some nice content coming out of Rocacorba over the next couple of days. We are going to capture this one. And there she is, easing herself into this race. Not any real severe activity so far, but it won't be long before we get to that first intermediate sprint. Remember, the first sprint comes at only 7.5 Ks. And here's a quick reminder of the point distribution. The first one is for the first 4 riders across the line. This is the little kick up before we drop down to that sprint. 5-3-2-1 on lap 1. Sprint number 2 offers up 10-6-4-2 and 1. Sprint 3, double that, 2012, 8-6-4-2-1. And then sprint 4, 40 points. And this is where riders are starting to open things up. Now Brady goes clear. Kummer, Makiva, McIntosh, Curry. Kummer starting to accelerate away with about 150 metres to go. The German Pia Kummer from Beast Mode Power Bar Rose. Is she going to hold on? I think she's going to. But on the line, she might just get pipped by Beth Makiva. Oh, I think Makiva just got that one for Movistar. McIntosh also in the mix there as well. We'll get confirmation in a few moments' time, but first blood, I think, drawn there by Movistar. So a good sprint had there, Hannah, but not too many riders getting involved in that one, and that's no real surprise, is it?
No, it's not, with only the 5 points available there, 5, 3, 2 and 1. But with a huge mix of teams who were involved. Saris No Pins were up there. It was hotly contested, that's for sure, for those 5 points. And it was very, very close. It was great to see that Ashley McIntosh, one of the new signings for Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 team, getting involved there.
Yep, great to see them involved as well. We'll get confirmation of that result as soon as we can for you, as they just head around. That finish, that sprint, should I say, comes around 1,800 metres to go roughly, so it won't be very long before we go through the Flamme Rouge for the first time, and then we approach the finish line. So it was Ashley McIntosh who actually took that first sprint. So McIntosh took the win there. So first blood to McIntosh. They're 5-3-2-1 in the bag. Next time through, double the points, and that will continue through. And great to see a few ride-ons now being dropped. But the bunch, not too many riders have been dropped so far in this field. A nice clutch of riders. The riders are midway through, just getting the benefit of that draft. Just confirm we do have 57 riders in this group, and there it is. There is the Flamme Rouge. And it's a complex finish, this one, isn't it, Hannah? It's you only get sight of the finish with about 200 metres to go, and it kicks up, but there's quite a steep section before that final drag to the line. And as we saw in the men's, it was very unclear until we got to the line who was actually going to take the win. So we know that timing is something that's crucial, but in this race especially, given the fact we've got that sprint and a lot of people will be put in the red, it's going to be a very, very unusual one, isn't it?
Quite like the intermediate sprint, that you can't see the arch from a long way out. It's only once you start to bear round where it comes into vision as you start to drop down. And I think that adds to the suspense, especially into that finish line, that you can't see the finish line from a long way out as you sort of wind your way through Central Park. And I think that adds to the timing, which power up you have as you see the points there for the first intermediate sprint. Ashley McIntosh taking the maximum points of 5. Pia Kummer, who opened up early with the 3. Beth Makiva of Movistar E-Team with the 2. And Catherine Curry of Saris No Pins taking the 1.
Well, thanks for that, Hannah. This is the 100 metres to go. This is where the road kicks up. 8% there. Look at the top right again. 8%. 7% drops away as they head towards the line, but that is a really, really complicated finish. And I was looking at it, they only get sight at the finishing game with about 150 metres to go, as a lot of riders here on this continuing rise. So as they go through the finish, gradient doesn't drop too much, it continues to rise. So unsurprisingly, riders here dropping their featherweight power up. And first shot of Gabriella Schumann there, nice lot of ride-ons for her. But the rider at the front is Ashley Moolman-Pasio, making sure she's well positioned here. But again, another bit of calm. We did see this in the men's race, didn't we? That first little flurry, that first attack, but the opening 2 laps were relatively calm. And I really did like Simon's analogy, where it's a little bit like Milan San Remo with the Poggio near the end, the 2 little climbs. It's a pretty good comparison, to be honest with you.
It's exactly like Milano San Remo when you have that intense finish going into the finish line. How's it going to be? Is it going to be a breakaway? Is it going to be a bunch sprint? What's going to happen? It really is such a, the suspense, and it makes for a thrilling and exciting finish for the riders and for fans who are watching that.
It certainly does. Well, Berry, should I say, is just now moving off the front. That's Charlie Berry of the United Kingdom, riding for the Rocker Corber Collective. That's a newly formed team this year by Ashley Moolman-Pasio. We're looking at Zoe Langham, picture in picture there. 36 ride-ons for the very, very popular rider. But Berry now moving clear with a slender lead of just over a second, putting out 5 watts a kilo. This looks like it is a decent attack here. Perhaps taking off the pressure for Ashley Moolman-Pasio. Getting somebody up the road in these early stages is no bad move, because it means that Rocker Corber can sit back a little bit and maybe protect Ashley Moolman. But a good move here by Berry so far. And she's opening up a lead of around 2 seconds now.
Yeah, Charlie Berry's a great climber as well. She's really powerful. She's got results in the British National Series, in road races, in the Curlew Cup, which is adjacent to the Beaumont Trophy on the men's side. So Charlie Berry, is an accomplished rider in the British National Series, and looks like she's managing and maintaining her effort very, very well. You can just see the focus on her face, in her eyes. She's just constantly changing gear, making sure that she's able to find a nice little rhythm to get herself into. And I think that's something that's quite tricky on this course, Matt, to try and find a rhythm because of the undulation. There's no real flat section of road. You're constantly going up and down.
It is really a hard one. I really enjoy riding around New York, not just for the wonderfully creative views, that juxtaposition of space-age architecture and beautiful autumnal trees, but as you say, it's a tough course to judge in terms of keeping the pressure on all of the time, because you get these little moments of rest. And to keep that momentum, especially in game, you really do need to press on these gears and keep that cadence optimized and keep on the gear. 2.4 seconds is her lead, but this is a good attack. But look at what she's having to put out compared to the rest of the field there. 4.8 watts a kilo, and her heart rate now around 187, which is about 20 or 30 beats less than most of the riders in the group. Just a stark illustration of the type of effort it takes amongst this class of field to ride solo out in front in a race like this.
Yeah, it's quite telling, isn't it? Because you see a rider who's putting in such a great effort here, and how deep they're having to go in terms of their energy reserves. And just saw there a slight picture of the peloton. They're only just behind, and it looks like on this descent she will be caught. She's maintaining it at the moment, but that gap rapidly coming down as we get a look at the Anvil power up from one of the riders in the peloton behind. Perfect use here on this fast section downhill.
Definitely, that's the only way you want to use this one. Just make sure you don't time it wrong, because it doubles your weight for 30 seconds. As Berry gets caught, she's got to make sure that she just accelerates again to make sure she stays within the draft of this peloton. And wisely, she's using a featherweight power up, but she's struggling here. She needs to make sure she gets within that drag. And it looks like she might actually be detached. Well, that's awful. Big shame for her, but it just shows if you get caught at the wrong time after going very, very deep, just the speed of the peloton to maintain just staying in the bunch at this level, you're looking at about 3.5, just 4 watts a kilo. And that's without putting your nose in the front.
Yeah, just looking as well that she used that feather power up on the descent still, so it actually made her lighter on that descent, which took away a little bit of speed, as opposed to actually giving her any benefit or at all there.
Indeed, we're looking at Mary Wilkinson there. Briefly on the front was Kristen Kulczynski, who will be looking ahead to the World Championships. She is an American, of course. She's a New Yorker. And this is that other little kicker. Lots of power-ups being used here. There we saw the red of 10%. It's only a short little climb, but I'd call this a Flandrian climb. A little kicker that rises up that could provide an opportunity to try and go clear. And a couple of riders are. And look at the flurry of riders here. Wahoo Lacole on the offensive. 4 riders on the front. Brooke, Gardner, Langham and Simek. This is absolutely spectacular stuff. They're still a few kilometres away from the next intermediate sprint. But Wahoo Lacole really stamping their authority on this race in the early stages. Still 25.3 kilometres to go, but they've opened up a lead of 3 seconds, and they've got 1 rider for company from Beast Mode powered by Rose. I've not seen anything like this. It's a team time trial with a German guest.
Well, this is exceptional. We were speaking about it at the top of the show before the men's race. How were teams going to attack this race? What were they going to do to try and get the upper hand on the teams if we were going to see a breakaway at all? And we said that perhaps it could go from a team time trial, perhaps a team of riders will get themselves to the front, really push on over the top and try and form a team time trial. But it looks like it's amounted to nothing at the moment. But I think a lot of riders will have been under pressure there to bring that back, because that was very, very dangerous, Matt.
It was indeed. Kulczynski goes right over the top. Again, there's the style that we have become so used to over the last couple of seasons. She's such a popular figure in e-racing, and she won her first round of the ZRL, the final round round 1 of season 2 of the 2021 to 2022 season, should I say, on Makuri Islands. But she's back in control. I think maybe she sensed the danger of that Wahoo Lacole breakaway going clear. But if anything, the organisation that we've seen Wahoo Lacole employ over the last couple of races is really quite interesting. They are so close-knit, aren't they? And they are setting the bar exceptionally high. Although that move came to nothing, it just shows how well connected they are from a communications perspective. They clearly are communicating exceptionally well.
We're yet to see Eilidh Gardner, Joe Blackburn or Lara Shemench, but from what we've seen of Lizzie Brooke and Zoe Langham, they've always got someone stood by them who's giving them instructions, who's relaying that information and having that communication within the team. It really is telling from the way they race, where they are in the peloton, how they attack week on week.
Indeed, we're looking at the stats there of Beth McKeever, the popular Scot riding for the Spanish World Tour team. Clutterbuck has gone clear with Catherine Collin here. Catherine Collin, newly signed rider for Roca Corba Collective, a former Zwift Academy finalist, rides out of South Africa. She's a good mountain biker as well, but Catherine Collin drifting back into that field after that tentative move. Just needs to make sure she keeps the pressure on to maintain the slipstream. Once you've been away and you get caught at a difficult moment. But Ashley Moorman-Passio doesn't appear to have too many teammates with her so far, but she's going to need the likes of Catherine Collin. Of course, they are both South Africans, but Ashley Moorman looking pretty comfortable there. Again, at brightly lit studio, wearing the rainbow bands with an additional rainbow bands on the wall there. She really has, as you'd expect, got a fantastic setup at Roca Corba, which isn't too far away from Girona in Spain. But she certainly looks comfortable at the moment, kicking out 4 watts a kilo. It won't be long before we get the next intermediate sprint. A reminder, coming up is sprint number 2. 5 deep the score, and 10-6, 4, 2 and 1 as another couple of anvils get dropped on this downhill section.
Yeah, you just saw the focus on Ashley Moorman-Passio's face there, and she's just setting herself into this race, and with her first round of the ZRL being in the Premier Division. Of course, before they were in that community division, they got through the playoffs, moved themselves up, and they wanted to try and stamp their authority within the Roca Corba Collective. And it's great to see this initiative, this new team come together with 3 riders from South Africa, with Courtney Webb, Ashley Moorman-Passio, but racing, of course, from her place at Roca Corba, along with Catherine Collin and then Charlie Berry and Rhiann Denton, 2 riders from the UK. And their ethos within the team is really something special, Matt.
Well, we're coming up to the sprint here, just before the sprint. This is where the barriers are on the left-hand side. There's a little kick up that takes us into the sprint. There we go. This is the little rise. It's only about 150 metres long, but if you carry the momentum over the top, you can actually carry a lot of speed into that sprint, because the sprint is actually downhill. But look at this, Curry and Van Hooling are on the front there. They've got Lizzie Brooke not too far behind. So the two riders from Saris Nopins looking good at the moment as the sprint comes into view. Just coming over the top is Beth McKeever, though. McKeever drawing clear. This is going to be very close on the line, but looking at that, it looked like Van Hooling or McKeever took it. So double points that time through, and that was a very hard fought for sprint. Good blocking of riders by Saris Nopins, and it was indeed Beth McKeever of Movistar taking a very valuable 10 points. Van Hooling there in second for Saris Nopins with 6. The first across the line for Wahoo at Lizzie Brooke. Lewis Adderhaste, the first home for Ionian, taking 2. Catherine Curry, previous American road champion there in 5th place. Let's have a look at the replay here, Hannah.
Yeah, it was a really another really tight sprint on the line, and as we just see it on that slight descent coming in, it was hotly contested. One of the riders who came through at the very last minute, Loos Addergeest, getting herself into the point scoring places. But just look at this, 3 riders shoulder to shoulder, Beth McKeever, Liz Van Hooling. Just that it really was so close for those points on the line.
I tell you what, all these little attacks, especially the way that the teams have been attacking these little drags. So let's go and have a look at the points tally so far. Movistar lead, courtesy of that good bit of scoring there by Kiva with 12. Saris Nopins in second with 8. Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 with 5. Wahoo Lacole with 4. Beast Mode Power by Rose with 3. And the only other team, should I say, to score so far, the Ionian race team with 2. But just looking back through the field here, Hannah, and given these little attacks on these climbs, the field has already thinned out. You just look at the bunch, don't you? Think, well, that's going to be easy sitting in the wheels, but already we only have 37 riders left in this field, so it's a far more attritional course than you make out as we look at the 3 riders there from Canyon SRAM, 3 previous, or the current champion, Alderman. Very young indeed. I think she's only 19 years of age, sat in the middle there. But great to see these riders all together, and they really are the stars of the future. Ella Harris already well decorated, and Neve looking pretty composed there. The winner in 2020 of the Zwift Academy, but she's looking remarkably relaxed actually.
Yeah, very, very composed. Likewise with Maud Oderman. It's tremendous to see them racing in the ZRL Premier Division, and especially now they've released that new striking kit. For me, one of the best kits in the peloton, men's or women's. They've done another exceptional job. They've been known for their standout kits since they started the team, but this by far is one of the best standout kits, and chapeau to them every single time.
It is indeed, but it's the only rider in that group. At the back there is Neve Bradbury. So she's the only representative of Canyon SRAM in this group. Just dropping towards the back there as well was the world champion Ashley Moulman-Passio as they head up to the finish. There we go. That's where that little kick is. Then it drops ever so slightly as we go back to Neve Bradbury. And a few riders just dropping ride-ons up this steep section. As good a place as any to do it. As for the first time, we see the women in red moving to the front. Team Hino didn't get anybody in the top 10, and at the moment on the overall they are in 3rd place, 5 points behind Wahoo Lacole. But for the first time they're trying to put something together here, but look at who they're being matched by. Anything that Hino do at the moment, Wahoo Lacole can do better, and they snuffed that move out very, very quickly indeed. And the way they're continuing to press on this drag is going to put a lot of riders into difficulty, Hannah.
Well, 4 on 4 there for Hino and Wahoo Lacole. They're not leaving much room for any other rider from any other team to try and get themselves into the top 10. There's a real fierce battle starting to emerge between these two teams, because at the moment, no points on the board for Hino. They've already lost one of their riders who unfortunately has been tailed off. That's Vicky Neelan, who's no longer in that group. So they've got to make sure that they try and keep the strength in numbers up towards the front and be vigilant on a course like this, because you can soon find yourself just losing the wheels, seeing some gaps open up as the pressure is applied up towards the front. So really, really important making sure that you stay within that top 10, maximum top 12 positions as especially as the bunch begins to whittle down.
Yeah, but it certainly has whittled down. We're just around half distance, or just over half distance. There you go, 18.6 Ks to go. This is lap number 3 of 4, and this is round 3 of the Zwift Racing League of the 2021-2022 season. We are in New York City for the very first time, the location, as we mentioned earlier on, of the UCI Cycling Esports World Championships that's going to take place on Saturday, the 26th of February, albeit on a slightly different course. But we do have the current world esports champion in our number today, Ashley Moore-Pasio, in the rainbow bands, as we look at the Swiss rider Melanie Mora of Team Hino. What can Hino do today? You'd imagine this course would suit them. Have they got something planned for the back end? Because they have plenty of representatives in this front group, Hannah.
Do you know, I always love seeing the picture-in-picture, getting to see the riders IRL in real life, as well as seeing their avatar on screen, because seeing the different setups of the riders, Melanie Mara there with the tribars, getting into a nice, comfortable position where she can rest her arms, her upper body, and just focus on putting the power out, as opposed to some riders who just have that normal, standard setup on the road bike in their pain cave. It's really interesting to see how some riders like to put themselves, Matt.
There's the average watts, the rolling average power, and that's an aggregated. I think it's the last 5 minutes or so, the average power. So it keeps rotating as you'd expect. Mary Wilkinson, 4.28 watts per kilo, compared to Neve Bradbury at 3.8. But this group of 37 riders just rotating. It was really interesting to see the way the bunch changed its shape on the descent. You'd see it was almost wider, Hannah, on this wide bit of road than it was long, as the riders were just easing off and effectively riding at the same kind of speed. But as soon as the road goes up, the bunch morphs and changes again. It's so interesting to see the in-game dynamics, exceptionally realistic here as we look at Lizzie Brooke, one of the riders for Wahoo LeColt. Lots of ride-ons. Again, I'm going to give you a bit of a reminder. Apologies for nagging so often, but please do get involved in the comments below the GCN Racing YouTube on which you're watching this. Tell us what you think, but importantly, please do give these riders some support. It does make a big difference, as Lizzie Brooke. There you go. Great picture-in-picture of what it's like to get in an aero tuck. And those little micro recoveries, so important, especially given what it's going to be like in the last 5 or 6 Ks of this race. It's going to be super intense.
When the racing is on and it's full gas and it is intense and the speed is high, it's so nice for the riders to see they've got that ride on. It's just that added little incentive. It's that fans cheering the riders on. That you don't have fans at the side of the road on the barriers banging the boards to give them some encouragement. This is effectively the encouragement you give to riders when you shout their name as they pass IRL. That's what a ride-on is. It certainly makes a psychological difference to the riders knowing that they've got your support.
Indeed. Well, there's a load of them being dropped out at the moment, which is great to see. So thank you for getting involved. I know you love watching, and we know that these races are, just getting better and better. With each iteration of the ZRL, things are getting better as we've got another attack. Isla now goes clear. The first attack for a little while after that little bit of a lull. So Megan Isla of the United States of America going clear. Perfect timing there in terms of the deployment of the featherweight power-up, reducing her weight by 10% for 15 seconds, especially on this steep section, 9 or 10%. It's only a short drag, as we mentioned before, but it is a nasty one. So the rider from Saris, no pins going clear, but it doesn't look as if she's going to spend too much time out in front. The riders behind, eager to make this up, but look at the effort there from Isla. You cannot, that is 110% effort from the American rider who's managed to, she's just got caught over the top, not being given anybody any quarter at all. 87 RPM there, and particularly distinctive style there, but she's been caught. And who is it? It's Kristen Kulczynski riding on her shoulder. She wants to do well. That is for sure. So Isla has been re-caught, and as we head ever nearer the next intermediate sprint, which is 2012 864 2-1, 16th this time with 20 points on offer. Will we see somebody go along on the next one? What are your thoughts, Hannah?
Well, I think that was the move from Megan Isla, that she wanted to try and go long, and Tactically, I think she had that quite spot on. She didn't wait until she got to the steeper parts of the climb. She went just before she got to the climb, got the gap, took everyone by surprise, and it made everyone really work because they know there's so many points on offer at this next intermediate sprint that you can't throw away those points. You can't just let a rider roll off the front. It was immediately shut down on the steeper part of the climb when it gained to around 9% in gradient. Mary Wilkinson, Scary Mary from Canyon Esports, just taking on some fluids, just keeping herself well hydrated, sitting to the 4 with her teammate. That is Cécile Lejeune, the young French rider, who's just sitting very, very close. So Canyon Esports just amassing themselves up towards the front, and you can almost start to feel the tension build as we get ever nearer towards this next intermediate sprint.
They've got Sidlik as well in there. Simenk we're looking at the moment. Looks like she might be in a loft looking at the shape of that roof. Looks like she's in the apex of her house. But out of the saddle here for Wahoo Lacole, 4.6 watts a kilo. Just making sure she's at or near the head of affairs. An exceptionally strong rider. All of the Wahoo Lacole riders are performing at an exceptional level at the moment. Looks like she's got somebody holding her Zwift for her as well, as you can see there, just so she can press the ride-ons as and when she wants. Always nice to have a little bit of moral support, maybe hand up a drink, maybe even a bag of crisps halfway through, but maybe that's just for the end. But always good to have some support. And she's giving us a wave. She's clearly listening in, and great to see, but she's looking pretty comfortable at the moment. But I hope that chap's hand is in good shape. Otherwise, he might get a Zwift cramp, which would be interesting to see.
It certainly will. It's great to see. She's in good spirits as well as Laura Shemench, the rider from Slovenia. But yeah, interesting pain cave. As I said before, yeah, it's really interesting to see all the riders, different pain caves, their setups, where they are, the different times of night. At the moment in Slovenia, it already is 10 o'clock at night. So the differences in where they're racing from around the globe. Oh, that's why we love it, isn't it?
We certainly do. It is. It reaches far and wide. I love it when I get on Zwift and I see all those different flags from all over the world, from India, South Africa, up to even through to the Arctic Circle as well. We're coming up to this sprint very, very shortly. Remember, we've got that little kicker to come. You can just see the washing machine effect, riders making sure they're in a good position, because it's easy to lose places on this little kicker before the intermediate sprint. We're looking at Gabriela Schumann there, the German, for Beast Mode powered by Rose. It looks as if she's in like a kitchen diner type situation, plenty of room, and she's got a little kind of coffee table there for a selection of drinks. So a good setup, plenty of room there for the German rider, who's comfortable in this group as well. Stevenson moving to the front, 13 kilometres only to go, as they've got this little downhill section. We've got a couple more little rollers before we do head to the sprint, with 20 points on offer, and we've only got 34 riders, Hannah, in this group now.
Yes, lap by lap, every time the road goes up, we just lose a couple more riders here, a couple more riders there. It's just so important to make sure that you're staying vigilant up towards the front, making sure that you're maintaining your position in the peloton as we near the next intermediate sprint. At the moment, we're starting to see Team Swedish Swifters with Bolin come towards the front, as well as Larson. Here is Eiley Gardner, but the rider who opens up first, it is Beth McKeever of the Movistar E-Team. She launches one at the moment, but she's being chased down by Liz Van Hooling, Matt.
She certainly is. Van Hooling and Catherine Curry as well for no pin. Saris not too far away, but it's still McKeever. She's got a half a second lead. She just comes in view of the finish here. I think she's going to be overhauled. She won the last one. It's not going to be this one, or is she going to hold on? It looks like it's Lewis Alahaste, I think, went across the line in first place there. A very, very late surge by the rider from the Ionian race team, who sits second overall. And I do think it was Hadehaste who took the points, and there it was, a very, very valuable points in the bag for the team who sits second overall. Hadehaste takes the win ahead of Van Hooling with 12. Zoe Langham there in third for Wahoo Lacole. Beth McKeever will have to settle for fourth there with 4 points. Catherine Curry doubling up again, and then Eiley Gardner, another Wahoo Lacole rider, scoring that final solitary point, which leaves us with this situation heading into the final lap very shortly. Ionian, well, they're equal on points, with Saris, no pins. Movistar in third, Wahoo Lacole in fourth. Beth McKeever, 4 points. Catherine Curry, 4 points. Eiley Gardner, 4 points. Eiley Gardner, 4 points. Catherine Curry, 4 points. Eiley Gardner, 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 4 poin Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 in 5th. Beast Mode Power Rose 3. But look at this, Canyon Esports haven't scored. Hino haven't scored. Very, very interesting indeed. But a lot of more points on offer. Hannah, talk us through this replay.
Yeah, certainly lots more points on offer, and this was that run into the finish. Again, another very, very tight intermediate sprint. Loos Addergeest, she came through and she took it by a bike length, and it almost looked like that she was so confident that she could ease off the power just going into the final 10 meters of that line at the intermediate archway. I mean, it's quite exceptional, her explosiveness and the way she injects the power into the pedals. It's quite exceptional. But Beth McKeever, she did open up early. It was a lot of energy wasted because it could have been a lot of vital points on offer for the Movistar E team, especially because they've only started with 4 riders tonight. Unfortunately, Hayley Simmons unable to start due to a technical problem, so they're already on the back foot starting with the 4 riders, and Beth McKeever just went that little bit too early. She's got another opportunity to make amends in the final intermediate sprint where the real big points are on offer.
Indeed. Just looking at the composition of this group here, we've definitely got 4 riders from Ionian. We've got still got 4 riders from Hino. I think we've got 3 riders from Canyon in there. ATP Racing well represented. We know we've got at least 4 riders in there from Wahoo Lacol as well. So most of the teams who are up at the top of the standings are well represented. But next time through, as we know, we've got double points again. 40 points, I remind you. 24, 16, 8, 4, 2 and 1 as we look at Loos Addergeest. She is a very, very popular rider for Ionian. 70 ride-ons there. Please do still get involved. Keep on supporting the riders here. It does make a lot of difference. And again, have a really good close look at this. 300 meters to go. And you can just see coming through 200 meters to go now. Still, you cannot see the finish. The road kicks up a little bit. You can just see through the trees to finish. It's only now that you can see the finish, and the gradient really starts to spike with 100 meters to go. 8% it is. Then just as the road bears to the right, that's when it flattens ever so slightly. So an exceptionally complex finish, and one that you really do need to think about, especially coming off the back of that previous sprint before with so much at stake. Hannah, 1 more lap to go now. We have 9.7 kilometers to the finish of this race. 34 riders in the front group. Double points on offer for sprint number 4, and then the all-important finish. This properly is a different style of race. It really is building to a crescendo. And as you described before, I can really sense the atmosphere here. Riders are steeling themselves for this very complex, challenging, intense finale.
It's starting to build because they know what's at stake. They know that the big points are on offer at this next intermediate sprint. They've only got a couple of kilometres to take a breather before you've got that fast run into the finish line. And all importantly, I'm curious as to what power-ups riders have got. If you are left with the anvil going into that finish, well, you're going to have to do the finish without any power-up. You certainly don't want to be dropping the anvil going uphill, making you 50 kilograms heavier going into that one. So what have riders got under their sleeves? You know, of course, they can share that amongst their teammates, but no one else will know what they've got in their pocket. And here, Catherine Curry, one of the most dominant riders in the ZRL. She's had 3 individual victories so far in all rounds of the ZRL, in all essences. As we see Steph Clutterbuck of the Movistar E team just make a move at the moment as her lead continues to rise.
Clutterbuck moving off the front. This takes the pressure off Beth McKeever, but she's having to work very, very hard, as you would expect, over 5 watts a kilo. But she's opened up a nice little lead here, 2.7 seconds and increasing over the Lizzie Brooke from Wahoo Lacol led group. Still 33 riders in that group. Clutterbuck off on her own. 98 RPM there, so pretty high cadence there, and 48 ride-ons as well. Let's see if we can get her above or nearer 100. These are the attacks that really make up Zwift Racing. So exciting, so unpredictable, because this course with this sort of point score is totally and utterly unprecedented. There's no formula to the racing this year, and that's what makes this format so exciting. And a good move here by Steph Clutterbuck. 6 seconds clear now. This is a very, very solid performance, but she's having to work so hard, Hannah. Her heart rate 30 beats higher than pretty much everybody else, topping out at 190 at the moment.
This is an exceptional effort from Steph Clutterbuck, and this, I would say, is an all-out effort. She's putting all her eggs into one basket here to take full commitment going into this final lap, because at the moment, when you look at her heart rate, the efforts and the power that she's putting out, there's no way that she could recover from this in time for the finish. This is a move where she means business. She wants to try and make this move stick as her lead continues to grow. 9 seconds now is the lead. Ashley Mullman-Passio is up towards the front, but Becky Story, Steph Clutterbuck's teammate from the Movistar E team, is just trying to block things at the front of the peloton. From what I can see behind, Beth McKeever also doing the same. Really interesting tactics, and just take a look at that. The peloton almost out of shot as she bears around the corner.
Well, this is a brave move by the British rider. Steph Clutterbuck out in front for the Movistar Esports team. She is looking very, very good. And 10 seconds now, so double digits, but it comes at a cost. And that is the cost that you talked about. This is all or nothing. There's no doubt about it. She could, you don't know, she could be trying to go for sprint number 4. That could be her finish line. We're not too sure. But this is a very, very popular move. Look at the love that she's getting from the community. Let's get it over 100. Get behind her because she's animating this race. This is round 3. This is the final lap of this course here in New York, taking a big, big bite out of the Big Apple round the park perimeter loop. 101 ride-ons for Steph Clutterbuck. This is what it's all about. And this is such a lead. She's opened up now 10 seconds. It peaked at 11. But look at that. She's having to hold a quite incredible 5 watts a kilo. Little bit of a rest there as the road dipped down. 189 beats a minute. This is going to be hurting. And this is a reminder on the left-hand side of how to get involved, how to find these riders on your app and give them a ride on. And of course, use it in the future when you're just bazzing around on Zwift as well. But Clutterbuck, with only 6.5 Ks to go, Hannah, this is a bold, bold move.
This is audacious from Steph Clutterbuck. She's a strong time trialist. She's a great triathlete. She took a victory last year in Portugal in an Ironman, but at the moment, it looks like that gap is rapidly decreasing. It's almost around 5 seconds now, and it's Natalie Stevenson of the Toyota Cryo RDT team who is starting to claw things back. And Wahoo Lacole, just take a look at that. 4 riders in the top 10. They can sense the danger. They know they want to try and take as many points as possible in this final intermediate sprint. And again, it's almost like they're trying to form a team time trial, Matt, as the gradient ramps to 9% here.
Yes, they certainly are, and they're shutting this gap down very, very rapidly. But God, we got around 75 ride-ons in about 5K there for Steph Clutterbuck. Thank you so much. But a gap has been slashed now over the top of this nasty little climb. 6 kilometers to go. That's about 4 Ks to the final intermediate sprint that offers up 40 points. So big points on offer. But Clutterbuck is still out in front. But the bunch, with a reduced bunch, are bearing down on her very, very fast indeed. There's the heat map behind of the draft, and it will only be a few meters time when the front part of the peloton are straight into that draft, and there they are. They are hauling her back, and hopefully on this little downhill section, Clutterbuck might be able to hold on, but it wouldn't surprise me if she gets punted straight out of the back. That was some effort, but unfortunately it wasn't good enough to hold on to sprint number 4. But it's effort like these that really give you confidence and also make this the spectacle that it is, Hannah.
It certainly does, and as we've said before, we said at the top of the show, we said it for the men's racing, quite like Kevin Bouchard-Hall, that you've got to be audacious, you've got to be willing to try and break away if that's where your strength lies, that you want to try and make that move, try and put the other teams under pressure to try and go and take the maximum points. And Ashley Mullman-Passio almost got a fan club surrounding her in her pain cave at the moment as she just sits nicely at the back, just taking the most of the draft at the moment in prime spot.
Well, she's looking good, isn't she? She looks so controlled and composed. She will be buoyed, of course, by wearing those rainbow bands. Kulczynski now moves to the head of affairs as well. Remember, riding essentially on virtual home soil. So Kulczynski has been pretty quiet so far this race. A couple of little moves near the front, but I get the sense that she's saving something for the finale. But in fact, everybody is saving something for the finale here. They know how hard it's going to be over the outside. Well, Neve Bradby not too far away as well. Gabriella Schumann as well from Beast Mode, powered by Rose. Cécile Lejeune, the French woman, moves to the front. Ashley Moorman-Pasio showing off that jersey. 4.6 kilometers to go now. The ride-ons are flying. Kristin Kulczynski, I think, is neck and neck in terms of ride-ons with Ashley Moorman-Pasio with well over 200. So we've got the points on offer for the ZRL, and we've got the most popular rider in terms of ride-ons. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Still 34 riders left in this front group with only 4.4 Ks to go. And Hannah, only 2 Ks to the all-important final sprint of the day, with points deep to the first 7 riders, but 40 for the first place.
It's going to be patience here going into this final intermediate sprint. Who can wait the longest? Who's going to break and try and go for a long one to try and take those maximum points? We're starting to see teams amass themselves up towards the front. Canyon Esports coming through with a few of their riders. Mary Wilkinson is up there again. Cécile Lejeune, the young French rider, just up towards the front, as well as Kristin Kulczynski. Again, she's coming towards the front at the moment. Ashley Moorman-Pasio coming round on the left-hand side, just trying to get herself ready for this intermediate sprint as we start to make that downhill. But the fluctuation of the power and the speed and the ever-changing gradient at the moment makes it incredibly difficult to get for these riders to get themselves into a rhythm as they storm towards this next intermediate sprint, Matt.
Indeed. Well, it's all about getting the power down at the right point, timing, using the draft effectively, using any power-ups you've got if you want to risk using a power-up. We're looking at Neve Bradbury. She moves to the front. Look how composed the former Zwift Academy winner is there, riding with her teammates, but she's the only representative of Canyon SRAM in this lead group of 34 riders. We only have 33.3 Ks to go, but it's not very long. We do have the final sprint. That's the coach, Dan Fleeman, with them. Dan Fleeman, of course, one of the coaches of Zwift Academy, and a pretty decent Zwift rider himself, former National Hill Climb champion. There is Neve Bradbury. We've got a couple of little bends to go. Then the road, as you will well know now, kicks up just a little bit, then drops down for the final sprint. This is going to be hellishly painful for all of the riders in this group. 2.9 Ks to go now, Hannah.
It won't be long until that final intermediate sprint as we bear this right-hand turn. And Neve Bradbury looking so composed going into this finale. She's looking very confident, very strong. As we start to see Wahoo Lacole, they start to make a move. And who is this? This is Lizzie Brook, who's going early at the moment. She's starting to open things up. With Larson on her wheel from the team Swedish Swifters, but she's challenged by Beth McKeever of Movistar E-Team.
Wow, look at the power of McKeever. She's the only rider to get anywhere near 12 watts a kilo, and she's continuing that effort, opening up a huge gap for the final sprint. Is she going to get caught? Lizzie Brook is coming very fast, but it won't be enough. McKeever takes first there. Lizzie Brook in second place, but somebody's going to go straight over the top. Brook goes straight over the top, so those points are done. No chance for a replay. Confirmation, McKeever with 40, Brook with 24, Embring from Team Swedish Swifters with 16, Mary Wilkinson with 8 there for Canyon, Zoe Langham with 4, and Daniela Estrate for Ioni with 2, and a final score there as well by one of the riders from Hino. So the points heading in to the final 2 kilometers of this race. Movistar lead with 56. What a night they've had so far. Wahoo Lacole, the series leaders, there with 41. Then we have Ioni with 24, Saris Nopins with 22, and in 5th, Team Swedish Swifters with 16. But also still in the mix here with 1,800 metres to go in the rainbow bands. Looking 2 weeks into the future is Ashley Moorman-Pasio, but some very fast finishes here too. 1,600 metres to go, Hannah.
Well, that was exceptional from McKeever. She's been able to keep herself in the mix at the moment. And Movistar E-Team in an incredibly strong position at the moment. Becky Story just leading things out. The rider from the Isle of Man for McKeever, and Ashley Moorman-Pasio just sitting nice and tightly up towards the front. There's a few riders who are just waiting. They're patient. They don't want to open things up too early. Los Arajis is sitting tight along with her teammate Mona Lee Keller at the moment, and we're starting to see the speed ramp up as we go above 47 kilometers per hour. We can see the Flamme Rouge. It's just in the sights of these riders. It is a reduced peloton at the moment, but 1.1 kilometer to go at the moment, Matt.
Yep, 245 ride-ons for the current world champion. As you said, Hannah, 1 kilometre to go now. 32 riders left in this elite front group. This is round 3 of the Zwift Racing League. We're in New York City. It's been a tactical race so far, but an attritional one as well. A massively reduced peloton containing some of the finest stars of e-racing, including the world champion. 800 metres to go. Still all together. Nobody has gone early, Hannah.
No, we're not seeing any of those really high watts at the moment. The orange numbers on the right-hand side of your screen, they're all waiting. I think perhaps they could have seen what happened in the men's race, that they knew if a rider goes early, they're unable to maintain it, especially with that ramp up to the finish. They're all sitting tight. Canyon Esports just amassing themselves up towards the front. Here comes Heino with the 3 riders up towards the back. Melanie Maurer just moving up. Catherine Curry is just sitting on the right-hand side, but Los Aregis, Matt, is the first rider to open up.
She is indeed. Anna Hees with a big surge there, but it looks like Louise Van Hoerling is going clear. So Van Hoerling absolutely flying around the corner here. Look at that, she's got an aero power up as well. Van Hoerling looks like she's going to take this one, but the road starts to kick up. Zoe Langham coming fast on the inside. Langham goes through. Is it Ollie Gardner? It looks like Langham is going to take this one. Zoe Langham in the last 25 metres of the course takes the win here in New York City. What an absolutely superb performance from the British rider, who is a medical student at Nottingham University, a popular figure, and boy, what an amazing performance by her. She takes the win. Looks like in her bedroom there, but what a perfectly timed sprint. Langham takes the win ahead of her teammate, Eiley Gardner. Another dominant performance from Wahoo Lacol.
That was incredible from Wahoo Lacol. Zoe Langham, exceptional there. And she has stamped her authority into e-racing, into the ZRL Premier Division. They're here, they've arrived, and watch out for her in the UCI Cycling Esports World Championships in New York in 4 weeks' time.
Well, what a superb finish. It looked like Van Hoerling was going to take that one. She went very early on, deployed that one. Let's have a look at the action replay. There's another celebration. So lovely to see these IRL pictures of the win. Let's have a look at this slow motion replay, and then we will look at the results. So a superb finish, Hannah. Talk us through those last very complex couple of 100 meters, because so much changed in the last few meters.
It was only with around 300 metres to go that Los Aregis opened things up early, and Liz Van Hoerling, it was like she'd been shot from a slingshot. She went with so much speed, so much power. She gained so many bike links over any of the riders, and she just started to tie up in the final 50 metres. And Zoe Langham was able to come round still with a few bike links over her teammate, and also Beth McKeever from Movistar E-Team, but exceptional that they got 3 riders by the looks of things in the top 5 of riders. Wahoo Lacol there. That really was exceptional. But Van Hoerling, she went a little bit early. She had one of the best power-ups with an aero power-up, and it made her faster, reduced her CDA. Exceptional sprint, but Zoe Langham, what a talent. I don't know if we can give any more superlatives to say how incredible this rider is as she stamped her authority, Matt.
Indeed. Well, there's confirmation of the result. Zoe Langham, should I say, of Wahoo Lacol, that takes the win. There's her average watts per kilo, 4.1. Her teammate Eiley Gardner in second place. Beth McKeever, after a great night, scoring intermediate points there in third for Movistar. But look at that, another representative of Wahoo Lacol in fourth place in the form of Laura Simic. Then we have Liz Van Hoerling in fifth. Megan Eastler, her teammate from Saris Nopins, in sixth. The first home from Beast Mode powered by Road, Gabriella Schumi. Then we have Hanson Brooke Bradbury. Good ride by the former Zwift Academy winner. Let's have a look at page number 2. 11th place, Catherine Curry. Then we have Estrate, Kummer, Lejeune, Adahe Swan, Keller Wilkinson, the world champion Ashley Mormon-Pasio just inside the top 20. Local legend Kristen Kulczynski in the 20th place there. But a lot to talk about. So back to you guys, Mark and Simon on the sofa.
Thank you, Matt. Wow, that was a masterclass, wasn't it, frankly, from the Wahoo Lacol team there.
We had 4 of them in the top 10 there.
Yep.
absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, we just saw them working together so well all day.
Yeah, so, I mean, even if we take the finish aside for one moment, there was one point where 4 of them attacked en masse, didn't they? Nothing really happened, but clearly they had a bit of an agenda that they were trying to play. But you've got to say, that finish, I mean, they've got some fast finishers, haven't they?
Yeah, here we go. We'll watch it through again. So this is just, well, the last almost half a kilometre. And yeah, you can see them all moving up here.
It was an unaccustomed mistimed finish from Lois Adageis, isn't it? So she goes first. Also, we can see Ashley Moorman-Passio there in the world champ stripes, looking a little bit out of place in a bunch sprint, mistiming it and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Adageis launches early, mistimes it, which is unaccustomed for her, I guess, uncharacteristic. And then, in terms of timing it to perfection, the Wahoo Lecole team, en masse, 3 of them right up there. Just fantastic. Hannah, you have managed to join us very quickly indeed, so congratulations on that. Possibly the fastest person on Zwift tonight. What's your take on that dominance from Wahoo Lecole tonight?
I just think it's exceptional. And as I just said in the commentary, I think we're running out of superlatives to describe Wahoo Lecole. I think the way that they race, the way that they time precisely their efforts to make sure that they maximise in the intermediate sprints and then come the finish line is incredible. Liz Van Hooling, it looked like it was a sealed deal going into that finish for the individual victory on the night for Saris Nopins. But in the end, the speed that Zoe Langham and Eilidh Gardiner came at, and then to have a third rider within the top 5, it's a force of dominance.
It is, isn't it? And what's different to Next is the fact that they're placing riders up there in the intermediates as well, aren't they? So, similar levels of dominance from Next in the men's category. But Wahoo Lecole are showing their strength earlier in the race as well. How
it seemed tonight is that they chose riders for the intermediate sprints and then had a group of riders for the finish line. So Lizzie Brooke was scoring highly in the intermediate sprints. Perhaps that's where the focus came, that we're going to split the team in half. I want you riders to focus on this side. The sports director said, I want you riders to focus on the finish and make sure you sweep up the big points.
Whilst we're talking about intermediate points, we have to discuss Beth McKeever. I mean, was it the first, second and the final intermediate sprint points and third at the finish as well there?
Exceptional. And to be able to recover so quickly and on a course like that where it's attritional, you have the fluctuation of your power output, the elevation as well, and trying to maintain the fluctuations of the speed too. But Beth McKeever, this is the penultimate sprint here, and she ran away with it. She had such a dominant lead in that one, and here you see this is the type of effort that it really takes for a rider to take maximum points. But she's an exceptional sprinter. She's very, very strong. She's got a lot of power. But for a rider to be able to recover like that is incredible.
Yeah, right. I don't think the team result is in any doubt, given what we've just seen. But let us check out the results nevertheless. For confirmation of Wahoo Lecole's dominance, 128 points. Although actually that's not a margin of victory. I mean, it's still epic, but not quite as big as I was expecting. Saris Nopins there in second with 86 points. Fantastic performance from them. Movistar E-Team were leading it on the intermediate sprints going into that final intermediate sprint, dropping to third there with 84 points. Ionian in fourth. Perhaps you've got to say, due to Ada Haste's mistimed sprint there, they missed her big finish. And then Beast Mode, presented by Rose, in fifth there with 51 points. And Heino, you've got to say, in sixth place. That's probably one of their worst performances for quite some time, wouldn't you say, Hannah?
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to the fact that we're seeing the strength and depth in other teams coming into the Premier Division. Here you can see the overall points tally for the teams here. Clean sweep for Wahoo Lecole, full 20s, quite like the men's in the Next Esports, isn't it?
That's right. And then Heino, dropping only to 4th. 10 points off the lead, so it's not dead and gone for them, but still that 15 points could come back and haunt them later on. Saris Nopin's in 2nd there, really consistent with second and then a 5th and then a 2nd. Ionian Race Team with 3rd, 2nd and 3rd as well. So yeah, I mean it's close. 4 teams within 10 points still, but it's looking like it's Wahoo Le Col's to lose now, isn't it? Yeah,
we're almost at that halfway point. We've got the team time trial next week, which Heino are incredibly dominant at. They know how to ride that style of race. We haven't seen how Wahoo Le Col will feature in a race like that. How are they able to bring themselves together? What have they been doing in terms of practicing, recons, getting that cohesion really dialed? But at the moment, when you see how dominant that Wahoo Le Col have been, it's theirs for the taking at the moment.
Well, we have actually got Zoe Langham here now, straight off her win. Congratulations, Zoe.
Hi, thank you so much. I really wasn't expecting that at the end there. I was really nervous again on the start line. Always am. There's the strength of the field out there tonight is absolutely exceptional, and just to be in those front packs with fields as stacked as this is just insane. And going up there at the front and having the Wahoo Le Col girls beside me is, it just makes you work that bit harder for your team, and I'm so proud of them all tonight.
Well, we've just been admiring the Wahoo Le Col teamwork this evening. Did you guys have a clear strategy going into tonight's race?
Yeah. We every week we've got our DS Adam Thorpe. He's the kind of mind behind the team. We went in with a pretty clear strategy, which was flexible. You never know what's going to happen out there. And again, it just goes back to how amazing all these ladies are. And we went in, and it doesn't always pay off, but it really paid off tonight, and I could be more proud.
Talk us through the finish, because your sprint looked to be timed to absolute perfection. Did you have a point on the course where you knew you were going to launch your sprint from, or were you taking it more on the fly and using what other riders were doing around you?
We reconned this course probably about 15 times in the end. So we knew going into that final sprint, if you were able to accelerate through the group as much as possible, it was all about the speed you came into that climb, and the rider that went fastest at the bottom into that climb had the win, because you can use the momentum through the group. And that was just Adam's de-essing with us all. You saw us all drop to the back.
Well, fair play, because it's all very well having great team tactics, but you've got to execute them, and that is no mean feat. So all credits to you, the riders. How are you feeling about the 3 rounds still to come? There's quite a bit of pressure on your shoulders now, I guess, having got 3 wins out of 3, and a very different format next week for the team time trial. How do you rate your chances?
I'm really looking forward to it. Again, we've grown such strong bonds as a team that every time you can just see everyone's working as hard as they physically can, and that just makes you work harder. So I'm really excited. We've not got our plan properly worked out for it yet, but we'll recon, we'll keep training hard, and just it's about fun at the end of the day. You've got to keep it fun, and tonight was just amazing.
Well, superb work. I just don't know how you fit in 15 recce's of a course plus your training.
Well, and your studies, isn't it? You're a medical student, is that right?
Yes, yeah. Hopefully, don't fail the exams next month, but we'll see.
Well, a nice bit of recovery, revising for medical exams, I'd guess, in between doing laps of Petit France, I think it is next week, isn't it? So anyway, best of luck for the recon.
That's it.
Congratulations
Thank
again
you.
for tonight, and we'll be watching with interest to see if you can maintain your run of form.
Thank you very much. Well done, everyone, tonight.
Cool. Well, I tell you what, Hannah, listening to Zoe talk there about reconning and the tactics for that final sprint, it brings home again how out of place Ashley Moorman-Passio, the world esports champion, was. She was on the front, wasn't she, with about 800 to go, and then didn't feature in the top 20. Perhaps more a reference of her esports racing experience as opposed to her, power as a rider?
Yeah, as we mentioned in commentary, Matt and I, this was her first race in the ZRL Premier Division since the Rocket Corber Collective were promoted from the Community League into the Premier Division. So, it all comes into play, doesn't it? It's a completely different discipline within cycling. You really have to specialise in it. She has been ill. She had COVID, so she's been recovering from that. Perhaps her top end isn't quite where she wants it to be at the current time. She still has a month to build on that for the UCI Esports World Championships on the 26th of February. A majority of her season will be looking towards perhaps the Ardennes and perhaps the Giro d'Italia, the Tour de France Femme of ex-Zwift. But at the moment, we know she's not a pure out-and-out sprinter. So she did the best of what she was capable of in the circumstances.
Yeah, we can see her warming down on the trainer just there. The World Champs course does not have a hilltop finish, does it? I don't think. Whereas last year's Esports World Championships did, which is where she was able to use her strength to full effect. So it will be interesting to see, I think, whether she can double up this time around.
Yeah, going back to the racing, we're talking about sort of e-racing craft. Now, someone that got caught out a little bit was Charlie Berry earlier on in the race. So she seemed to have a little bit of a gap, but as the group were coming down the descent, and we see it right now, she's got a gap on the group, and it seems that the rest of the group started dropping the Anvil power-ups and just swamped her up and spat her out the back.
Well, that's right. I mean, talk about getting caught at precisely the wrong point. That's just cruel, isn't it? I mean, it does happen in real life, sometimes in bunch races, where if you get dropped at the wrong time...
Oh, look at that. The graphic just shows it so obviously.
It does, doesn't it? But yeah, that is a unique thing, I guess.
It is, and that's, another part of e-racing, that you're still on the descent. You don't want to be dropping the feather power up at that point, because it makes you lighter, so you're almost losing all that weight that you do want on the descent. You want to try and keep that power up back for when the road elevates and then you start to ascend. So that just shows the experience. They're still learning. They're still very, very new to the Premier Division. Charlie Berry, though, she gave it a very, very good go.
Yeah,
she did.
Another person that also gave it another good go was Steph Clutterbuck on the final lap. Got over 10 seconds on the group, but it was probably, and we were commenting at the time, watching it, I think it was a bit too early. And yeah, she was caught by the group, but a sterling effort. Yeah,
it was very cagey tonight, wasn't it? Both the men's and the women's races, we saw, I think, less attacking than we had done. And I guess it was just because of the importance of that finale, wasn't it, really?
Quite like Ashley Mulman Passio, quite like some of the other riders who know they're not going to feature in a sprint, a bunch sprint. Steph Clutterbuck had to work with her attributes as a rider, and she knows that she's not the most powerful sprinter, but she can go long. And that comes from her time trial background, her triathlete background, where she knows that she can maintain the high watts and keep it there at that level. And she did get a considerable lead. Didn't work out this time, but that's not to say if she does it again of course not next week, but in 2 weeks' time when we're back into a points race, that it will work out and she will take maximum points. And I think it's all about putting yourself in the strongest position, isn't it?
It is indeed. Well, let's look ahead, shall we now, to what is coming up. That is the halfway point through season 2. 3 races down, 3 to go. Next week, as we said, we're in France for a 24-kilometre long team time trial, the one and only team time trial of the series. Then 1 lap of the Temples and Flowers route in Mercury Islands, 33 kilometres with 300 metres of elevation gain. And then the final round, round 6. Climbers Gambit in Watopia, 27 kilometres long, but 600 metres, clean sweep of victory so far. Next, esports powered by Insured and Wahoo Le Col. One bad round though, like we saw from BZR, and you'll plummet down the standings. Join us next week. Hannah, you are allowed to go home this time if you really want to, but we will see you back here next week, as we will you lot too. Bye for now.